This is WEBurlesque.
Hi, this is Taryn Garters.
Texas Tea Cakes here.
Hello, this is Remy D.
Hi, this is Quinn Dixie.
This is Kurt Hefner.
And Lucho Lawless.
And this is WEBurlesque, Season 10.
Season 10.
This is WEBurlesque, the podcast, and I am your host, Viktor Devonne. And through the miracle of fiber optics, I get to talk to nightlife individuals in the field of drag, burlesque, cabaret, and today is no exception. I have the individual that everybody wants to be because they are the showgirl themselves, Aquarius Moon. Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hi. Does, in fact, everybody want to be a showgirl?
I don't know. I think maybe. I like
After
to
all that, can you
so
imagine if you were
so.
like, no, not really?
I would hope to think.
So this has sort of been hovering for how long has the expression everybody wants to be a showgirl been a thing for you?
I hate to credit Taylor, but I have to say, I think it was like born like last October during the Life of the
Okay.
Showgirl launch, like right before when she first announced it and started moving online. And then the actual manifestation of it becoming an exhibit started this February. And yeah, and now it's just spiraling.
So where did you get the idea to document history and to have that be part of your storyline as a performer too?
Yeah, well, I ended up in burlesque because I lost one of my dream jobs at a very large fitness startup that was getting venture capital backing, and I was running a studio in DC. I was trying to before that, I was trying to be a Cowboys cheerleader, but before that life, my whole background's in education policy and advocacy. So I've worked on things like paid family leave, anti-racism policies. So like my truest passion is in education and advocacy and policy reform.
Okay.
So my soul has always I used to teach U.S. history as a sixth grade teacher. So my background really is in history. My performance background in burlesque, I still consider myself a baby.
Okay.
This November will be 4 years. So I it really kind of just like manifested from me kind of yapping online about wanting to see working class burlesque performers get the same respect and recognition as the commercial stars we see often wearing the costume of burlesque.
Yeah.
And I think I use the word showgirl satirically. I never use it as a gender marker or something that says like you're a Jubilee showgirl from Vegas or from Paris, from La Follies. It's more
Hmm.
just the idea that the average person really hyper focused on in the United States, in North America, they think of Christina Aguilera burlesque or they think of Moulin Rouge or Crazy Horse, and they don't necessarily they don't connect the history between all of the groups and the solidarity we have between, again, being working class performers.
Hmm. Well, I mean, even in the theatrical versions, like your Gypsy, or I mean cabaret also to an extent, although obviously that is a slightly different art form. Chicago has elements of it, even Rent has elements of it. So much of it has to do of the starving artist, the
Mhm.
struggling, almost like it's I'm using hyperbolic air quotes, everybody, a step above sex work in a lot of
Mhm.
different ways,
A cousin.
particularly right when it addresses its relationship with familial expectation, or that it's not what a lot of people try to do. They want to be a singer, or they want to be a dancer, or they want to be a star in some capacity, and they almost settle for that,
Hmm.
and then get really successful in some cases, your Nomi Malones or
Hmm.
your Rose Lees. But there's a level of scraping and scratching and trying to get there that still is hyper glamorized.
For sure.
Um, and then you look at like what like the Hollywood version of what burlesque is, which is I'm curious what your opinion is as someone who has done some of this research. What your idea of when somebody says classic burlesque or that expression, what do you think they generally mean, and what might be lacking in that or in that definition?
Yeah, I mean, loaded question. I think it's like a
Sure.
little
Oh, we do easy,
controversial.
easy stuff here.
Like we're just jumping in. I mean, my education on classic burlesque has evolved and shifted. I'll be
Mm,
honest, like I'm a neo girl at heart. So like I want to
okay.
be weird. I want to dance. I want to shake my ass. I don't want to be confined to like the strict technique of
Mm,
what I think the industry or the commercial will redeem classic burlesque. I mean, I'll never forget like I paid for a private with Pearl Noir and I like cried to her like I'm not getting the jobs I want, or sometimes I'm the only black performer in the show and they want me to do this type of act. And she was like, honey, the big bucks are in classic. So now I think my evolved idea of what class, and we all know that's, not necessarily true. You can also make big bucks doing burlesque or other forms of
it's a lot of
burlesque.
regional
Yeah, it depends
and
on where you
waves.
are,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
think classic for me now is a silhouette. It's not so much a song or a body type or a genre. I think it's more the look because in the commercial world, they're not doing classic bump and grind. They're just wearing the corset, the gloves, and the stockings. So I
Maybe a
think,
mermaid dress or something like a form
a
fitting.
tux,
Yeah.
you know, but I think the idea of like the classic components, like the glove reveal, the stocking reveal, tearaway pants. And I think it can be combined with big band jazz music, but I think it can be
Hmm.
done to rock. Like I love Lulu the Duchess. I love like the different varieties of classic, what can be classified as classic.
Hmm.
Um, but I think the current scene I see, classic can be anything. I think the commercial world deems classic as this 1920s Art Deco facade of wealth. And if
Hmm.
you cannot convey that aesthetically, it has to come through other ways.
Yeah, there is that sort of Gatsby expectation. I'm like, but if you really consider, which is sort of a fascinating dichotomy, considering the waves of depression economically our country
Hmm.
has been in, and the
Hmm.
idea of excess really kind of being gross in a lot of ways. Like we criticize celebrities all the time for being wasteful or spendthrift, um, and not reading the room, basically, when
Hmm.
we're like, but people are like actually starving right now.
It's like kind of
Um,
campy to be wearing expensive clothes and like not be able to pay your rent, which I see is a constant issue in our community. So even
it's a
sometimes I
shtick.
feel
It's a
fraudulent being
shtick.
like, I'm a
Yeah.
hot showgirl, but it's like, girl, I'm still trying to figure out this August 1st.
I know, I get it. I get it. Yeah, it is really sort of interesting. It's such a it really is the utmost of playing pretend. Like it
It's
really
facade. I
is.
mean, this is my drag. I had the
Mm,
whole like
hmm.
battling moment like 2 summers ago because I'm in a drag house of like, what is drag less to me? That there was a lot of pushback with me doing burlesque in drag spaces. So I really tried to learn how to lip sync, learn how to differentiate. But for me, I consider myself, I know it might not read that way, like hyper masculine, very direct. And so for me, like playing in my hyper femininity was really out of my comfort zone in
Hmm.
regard to like me feeling comfortable expressing that way. And I got to play with my sexuality like as a queer person coming from ballroom culture, which I came from before here. So
Oh,
it kind of
fabulous.
like, yeah, that world kind of allowed me to play with my femininity, with women's performance and Vogue Femme. And I still Vogue like a wild person, but I'm still attaining like wanting this soft and cunt vibe. And I think that's just through a learning process of learning my body and my forms of expression.
Yeah. Well, because also being adding in all of the other elements about specifically about the fucked up masculinization of Black women very
Hmm.
frequently
Hmm.
to deride or to discredit. We see this we see this on trolls on the internet. We see this with Michelle Obama. We see this with the Williams
Hmm.
sisters. Very frequently power and confidence is viewed as something to want, but don't want too much. Don't get too
Not too
uppity.
much, not too much.
Exactly.
And a lot
And
of these words,
particularly, yeah.
soft and feminine, I think they are being hijacked due to
Mm,
capitalism purposes on the internet. But
mm.
for me, this is like really a battle to like sit in my femininity and not feel shame about how it expresses.
Well, I think that also comes into a lot of discussion when it comes to the expression like body positivity or something like
Hmm.
that is to the commodification of that expression has gotten folks are like advocates within our own scene, like Pucks Plenty, to
Hmm.
discuss like how about like body neutrality? Like how about like we just say
Hmm.
or Jezebel express like your body is fine. This is what you got, and this is just what we have. And
Thank
then you
God for the
add in,
moment.
you know?
Hmm.
And then, well, the problem then becomes is then because suddenly it's being mass produced at the gap at the next interval. This sort of concept of finding our own spaces being hijacked or being infiltrated or something like that by someone who then wants to profit off of it, but doesn't necessarily have those mentalities. It's pervasive in the queer communities. It's pervasive in a lot of advocacy, and then it
Hmm.
becomes, a fashion statement, or it becomes just an ugly side of culture.
Yeah.
Um, and the element of the showgirl or the show person
Hmm.
being flamboyant and sexy and fun and within their own power. I've said on this pod many a time, and I will continue saying it until it's no longer true, that burlesque is the last vestige in the entertainment arts that doesn't have an outside force telling you what we should be doing.
Mm.
We don't have anyone who is criticizing burlesque as an art form or as a movement or as a system are other burlesque people. In the drag
Hmm.
communities, yes, there is that too, but we have people on Reddit and on Twitter saying, this is what I would have done on the runway. Oh, that person shouldn't have
Mm.
won. This show is rigged. That's not how I would have constructed that on Project Runway. That's not how I would do it. And then you get into the more acceptable criticisms in dance, like your ballet or your theater or what have you. And it's okay that people who quote can't comment
Hmm.
on it because that's part of our world as well. So, considering burlesque and where it stands, what do you see about the world of burlesque today? Whether it's reflected in the past, whether it in your what would you say burlesque really has to give to the world today?
I think you're right that it's one of the last places where censorship hasn't fully corrupted the art form.
Mm,
I think with capitalism, like the devil in that is always like, again, like from this starving place of like, I want to get out of this place. And so what do I have to do to like put my art out there? But I mean, I'm a beneficiary of the internet in burlesque. Like call myself like a panini burly babe. Like I learned
oh,
from
sure.
YouTube, like I learned from getting laid off at my job. So for me, like burlesque has been an outlet to express my art in many other places that wasn't accepted, whether it was commercial dance, commercial modeling. And this idea of me even coining like everybody wants to be a showgirl, like I would never be eligible for a Jubilee position. Like I'm not tall enough, like I'm dark skinned, I'm all these things. What I think burlesque is missing is I think the identity of the art is driving the art conversation instead of the diversity. I don't know if that makes sense, but like
Hmm.
I think the identity politics, kind of like you were saying, like on the spectrum, like have become the burlesque community is like much very surveillant. And I think with the critiquing and the constant canceling and the constant tension of kind of like crabs in a barrel mentality,
Uh,
that message is not coming through to the mainstream. When I'm talking about breaching commercial success, I'm not necessarily saying we want to have a RuPaul, even though this conversation has come up a lot. Like, RuPaul, hate or love her with the contracts, like we would have no Got Milk, we'd have no Sasha, we'd have like none of these people,
hmm hmm
Bob, without that. So like, where's our person? That's not necessarily where I think the best place to go. But I think what the burlesque community is missing is like, what is the difference between community and industry? And I
hmm
know there's been many different times, like the Sex Worker League, there's been many times people have tried to come together and, God forbid, unionize. But I think union is a scary word from coming from politics, but where is the collective organization to get this message out? Like this is a place where you can look different from the stereotypical commercial look and reach success. But there are other avenues in which that's happening. It's definitely getting worse. Like, when George Floyd was murdered, like my brand deals were out of this world. And I just made the connection, like, where are my brand deals? Like, why did I lose all those sponsorships? Like, why aren't I seeing black bodies? Like, what's going on? We're reversing. And obviously that's going to tie in with our political structures. But I also think burlesque is missing the message. I think there's a huge opportunity, like just kind of like we were talking about, like the Depression and Gatsby, like we have this oppressive government, but like I'm from Somali immigrants where like I'd be stoned to death if I did burlesque in Somalia right now. So
Mhm.
I I have immense privilege being like a daughter of immigrants, being able to expose my body and my art and my queerness here without shame and let alone without violence to me. And I think if the people doing this art form really truly on a global stage understood, much like with homophobia, like, like if you're gay in Saudi Arabia, like it's lights out. But
Yeah.
having that awareness of like, yes, America is deeply flawed. There's deep injustice here. And in places where we still have some forms of freedom of speech, we should be empowered by that.
Absolutely. But it's interesting too with a lot of the critics, and I mean I'm creating straw men, but I think we all know if we spend any time on the internet what straw man I'm implying to. Uh I'm referring to is the idea of saying something like if you indicate solidarity with Palestine, that's like, well, if you went to Palestine and you were gay, you'd be thrown off a building. It's this big thing that is being
Hmm.
echoed repeatedly on
Hmm.
in comments. And the thing is, like, well, that's okay, but let's break this down because you also want me to be proud to be American, and I can also have that happen here. Like I
Hmm.
can, like if you go into certain areas of the country where I'm in an unhold hands with someone,
Hmm.
I'm going to experience that here. So
Hmm.
let's not be too haughty in our belief system there that therefore, but
Hmm.
you still want me to say that I'm supposed to stand for the flag and I'm supposed to be like, a
Oh,
patriot.
absolutely not. Yeah, no.
Um,
Yeah.
but you want me to be this, but you also then have an issue with the identity that I have, because if I'm a child of immigrants,
Hmm.
then you're saying that I'm an anchor baby, but I'm the wrong kind of anchor baby. If you're saying that
Hmm.
I had family members who struggled to get here, but they didn't go through the quote proper channels, well, is that because of the color of my skin, resilience? Or is that cheating the system? It really like there's
Hmm.
a real distinct difference between what we were a lot of folks I think in my generation, and I don't actually know how much older I am to you. I'm 42, I believe. I'm at
Okay,
least
yeah, I'm
partial.
36, millennial L.
Okay. So but I grew up with like an American Tale
Yeah.
and this sort of concept of sort of like and considering also those were what are those Russian Jewish mice?
Mm.
We had to make the mice to make people care in the first place is already something.
Hmm.
But I feel like there's a certain like the concept of everything quote being woke or being pandering or what have you. I'm like, but we had like these elements before, like these beloved childhood moments, these beloved like cultural touchstones. What happened? Where did we where
I
did
think the
the
internet, that's why I was bringing up the internet. I think the internet,
yeah.
like really made it an unfair landscape. Um,
Mm,
I wrote in my blog, like, from a perspective of a new performer, like, if you're not on the internet, like, how are you getting work? I just recently talked to a performer who, like, is like protesting Meta, and she's having a really hard time getting work. I have another friend that they are in New York and they got their Instagram taken down because it was attached to, a sex working app. And they have not been able to secure work. So I think the internet, and then in combination with George Floyd and the pandemic, like all of these kind of mixed in together,
mhm.
created this ecosystem where a lot of people passed on, a lot of people retired, a lot of people had families, and then there was a new wave of people that came in. And from my observation, this new wave is more reliant on their internet personalities than their talent and the
Mhm.
art form. And I think that was another driver of like, hold on, the history needs to be, we
Yeah.
need to bring this history forward. Because even me, I can be very transparent and honest. Like when I first started, it was about bookings and festivals and competitions. And it really took me like really winning one that it was like, oh, wait, this is like not the thesis of what's important for me. Like me wanting to do Beehoff, like, isn't it supposed to be about the legends? decisions? Like, is it, and it took me a few years to kind of like process the wants and desires I had and how much of that was coming from pressure from social
Yeah.
media to look like you're booked, to look like you're accomplishing all these things, but you're kind of like on this, you're doing the rat race of going in a circle because we always end up at square one. Like if you're in love with the art form, you do it for a long time. If you don't have passive income, if you don't have a partner, if you don't have all these systems in place, do you end
Yeah.
up like the legends crowdfunding for their like later in life, like things that they need? So I was like, okay, I probably need to be in this for the long run. I don't know if everybody from the internet generation feels that urgency because they got it so quickly. I was able to accomplish some things a lot faster, and I don't believe it has anything to do with talent. I do think I'm talented, but I think it was about the optics of like being visible, and I knew how to use social media as well as a lot of I think newer performers are social media savvy as opposed to I think some performers who have a career 10, 15, 20 years. If they were not cultivating that skill, it was very evident when the pandemic happened, and then there's this split. And then there's obviously like the rising conservatism and people being in denial that that's impacting their decisions just because they might have this like liberal progressive perspective, but like what are we not actively, if we're not daily like challenging ourselves to like look for it, like it will
Hmm.
sneak in pervasive ways.
Well, we've seen the sort of the bucket of crabs, as you mentioned, a lot of the icons era. So I've been doing this about 20 years. It'll be 20 years this September. And so I'm at a I'm in the 2000s. So I'm in the mid
Wow.
2000s when I started 2006. And I didn't have a lot of awareness of contemporary burlesque around me because I was just in this my own little bubble in New Jersey, stripping in conference rooms
Mm-hmm.
with a cast of folks during the steampunk rise, during like the heyday of this sort of Pirate Ren Fair Dresden Doll sort of era, tiny hats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and but a decade before that, you had your Dirty Martinis and your Tigger and your Juliet Muses and your folks booking, working, and like sort of like this sort of punk mentality, putting flyers on the wall, working in that way, sort of underground. Um, and a lot of the folks that are immediately before me, like I'm mouthy, and I'm surrounded by a lot of mouthy folks, and a lot of this current iteration of burlesque are chatty folks. We say a
Mm-hmm.
lot on the internet. We don't necessarily take into account all of the time how things can come across or what maybe we should
Mm-hmm.
not everything needs our spin, you know?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that group immediately before me is pretty quiet a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes that's an internet thing because I don't know the last time I saw Dirty Martini post on the internet, frankly. I know Tigger does, but Tigger's also a very outspoken activist in the present sense. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of what he's talking about is about injustice. And he's also someone who I actually like try to follow, admittedly, too. So I seek his stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
He's on a close friends list as opposed to just things I stumble upon. Um, and while I know that a lot of us look to the legends as examples, there's this middle ground that I think is sort of amorphous. And every once in a while, someone would like they'll get press, in our circles, I'll consider it press. We have no. Can you imagine if we had TMZ?
Yeah.
Can you again?
You can start it.
Uh, I mean, to some degree, I mean, we see this with the Drag Race girls too. Like they go on the Kelly Manos show, or they go on Delta Work, and they say something, and then it just lives on Reddit for like 3 weeks, and then it moves into the
Mm-hmm.
next cycle. We don't have anything really like that. We've had our, and I'll say their names
Moments.
because they're the ones who said it. We've had our Trixie Littles who have posted
Right.
manifestos. We have had our Medianoches who have commented on the state of things. And we have our matte finishes and Bella Sins who, when they go Instagram live or post something, we go, okay, so where is this going? Like,
Mm.
what are we gearing up for? Um, it's insular, another word that I like to use on the pod. Hey, Quinn Dixie, I know you're listening. I said
Hey,
insular.
Quinn.
Um, she called me out on, not called me out, but she acknowledged the fact. It's like, oh, you said insular, you said it in front of me. Like, oh yeah, I did. It's a catchphrase. But I think that is there a responsibility? I guess I've been talking for a long time here, and I haven't actually proposed a question. Do you think there is a responsibility
I just speak
of
here.
our four parents?
Yeah, so this came out, the second exhibit stop was Minneapolis. So this actually came up with Foxy Tan because we had like a whole section on Foxy. And who are the next up and coming legends? So in ballroom, we have rules.
Yes.
Okay? Like you can't be a legend or an icon or a statement like unless you've done things. And
Yes.
it's not just win. You can't just win. You have to give back to the community. You have to have hosted events. You've had to run fundraisers. You have to be advocating. Like even in something as, and I would argue that ballroom has surpassed burlesque in terms of the commercial seal. Like there are shows about it. Like I heard
Oh,
Pose is coming
absolutely.
back for the final season. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
In our culture, in
Angelica
our
Ball.
language.
Yeah, we'll talk about Casablanca Ball maybe later, but like I think even though it's closing, like we're there. You know what I mean? Like we're gonna
For
push
sure.
past. But I think the biggest thing is this procession of like, what do you need to do to be recognized by the community? And a lot of that, like I'll just speak from the ballroom scene. I have a lot of girlfriends that stayed the ballroom track and I went the burlesque track, and they're being deemed as legends now. That's because they won a bunch of times. That's because they pulled on community events and they attached those to events to, STD testing and healthcare information with nonprofits. Like it's there's so much more of a communal responsibility, and there's a lot of
Hmm.
critique we can have of ballroom. But I really wish burlesque had more of again an emphasis on this public responsibility. I personally think like I'm creating an installation now that will debut in Davenport for the fourth installation, which is what makes a legend. And it's just going to be a community installation where people can write and post it. And then I'm hoping after 1,000 comments, we can come up with a list of like what does make an up and coming legend. Because in my mind, right now we're fundraising for Shauna the Black Venus, Tiffany Carter. Yes, again, they're up there, they're important, they need their flowers. But also 20 years in, that's why I was like before we started, like, wait, you need to be in the exhibit. I know the exhibit is focused on Black burlesque. There is a story to why that is, but
Sure.
it was originally entitled Everybody because it's the idea that anyone encompassing this art form deserves like the spotlight, the financial compensation, and the respect that the commercial world gets. So I think it's actually like at the top of my list personally to identify who this next generation is because I think that's the issue. Like you were saying, like there's
Hmm.
this generation that was silent. And I know for me, like I used to be an organizer. I can tell you, like, I was right there the day Joe Biden got elected as a choreographer, paid by George Soros to like run events on Black Lives Matter Plaza. I've been in the thick of political advocacy and
Man.
activism, and I had to stop posting about that for my life. Like, when I was teaching in
You've had a
T4,
very full 36 years.
you know what I mean? Like they were writing like TFA ringleader, like my life has been, and I also, I have family currently being deported like by ICE. So I know not everybody's in a position to speak politically on the internet and use their platform directly that way. But I
Right.
do think that it has to be much more than just how much you worked, if you tour, if you're on a list, if you have a crown. You don't actually need any of those things if you're contributing to people in a meaningful way.
Mm. Hi, this is Viktor Devonne, and you're listening to WEBurlesque, the podcast, and I love you for it. I gotta tell you, this is still one of my very favorite things to do. I'm very happy, very proud, very honored that people download this and listen to me and a bunch of folks talk about why we love what we do. It's really great. It really, really is. And I want to give a special love to the patrons on patreon.com. Give it up for Melody, Devin, JaCourtney, Clara, Dottie, Charlotte, Luna, Goosey, Roxy, Faye, Tiffany, Jimmy, Curly Bright, Oliver, Sebastian, Alex, Bo, and Stormageddon. I had to take a breath there, people. It's really lovely. It really is really, really, really lovely. I think it's so difficult to dedicate time and make shit happen, but I'm working on it. I'm trying. Goodness gracious.
please know that you mean the world to me. And if you would like to support me in any other way that is not money, please follow, like, subscribe, share, comment, do those things, and I won't charge you for it. It'll get me further out there, and more importantly, it'll get these people that I bring onto this show further out there as well. So, mwah, be well, darlings.
Well, I mean, if you consider even the first Miss Exotic World, when Dixie Evans hoodwinked the press into coming and saying, "Oh, Tempest Storm has been invited." I forget who else she indicated had been invited. Um, the first Miss Exotic World, technically, if you really break it down, if those legends didn't make it, well, then those legends weren't there. They were the
No.
contemporaries. They were the so who was at the first Miss Exotic World, but relatively contemporary burlesquers, right?
Okay, educate me because I want to make very clear before I state this. The people
Yeah,
come for me. I'm learning. I am
yeah, yeah,
learning. I'm an open vessel. From what I observe from my research, that is limited to public libraries and Google
yeah.
and word of mouth conversation. When I watched all these documentaries that came out in the later 2000s about Beehoff, about New York, there's like a string of documentaries.
Yeah.
What I noticed is like the people going to the desert were so enamored by these legends. They were
Mhm.
so excited to hear the stories. They were not going there to clout chase. They were not going there to get booked. They already had the bookings. The talent
Yeah.
was already. This was a parody thing. This was just let's kiki and hang out. And this is for the older babes to talk about their life and retirement. And then the new generation's there and we share stories and we bond. And it was almost kind of giving convention. If I
Mm-hmm.
think it stayed on task, it could
Mm-hmm.
have stayed more like a Burley Con, which is controversial in itself. But I think the real dismissal I see right now is like most of my peers only care about Miss Exotic World, the crown.
Right. The
I
pageantry.
don't, we say we care about legends, we
Uh,
repost, but when it comes to the fiscal like division of like assets, when I look at
mhm.
who's getting money, who's needing crowdfunding, like I think there's $30 in Shauna's like fundraiser thing right now
Mhm.
for us. And I know Burley Cares has also been fundraising for her, but I'm just giving an example of like what I see is when Beehaw first started, the Michelle Amours, the Dirty Martini, like they were flying out there, Desiree Demore, like they were out there because it was bringing them joy. And I think now
Yeah.
people are now going because they want the crown. And then unfortunately, I think that crown is such a letdown from my interviews with Miss Exotic Worlds that I think
Mm.
it actually makes people go manic a lot of the times. And they stop getting work. And then now we've got this whole lineage of Miss Exotic Worlds who are either upset or they're not working, or to me,
Mm.
it's just incredible talent gone down the drain because as a collective, we've missed the message. We've just missed it.
Well,
It's about the
yeah.
taming ground from my lens of what people care about.
I think sometimes, and this is not to discredit anyone who has ever been bestowed that title, because I am of the I don't enjoy when someone who wins something or is bestowed a title that people get mad at the person who got the title. If you want to be mad at someone, and let's address what you're mad at really, because sometimes you're
Mhm.
mad at systematic things, and that's okay. That's
Okay.
understandable. You
Right.
know what? Fight the power.
Yeah.
But if you're just mad that your favorite didn't win, or you're mad that this seemed like a political statement, or this or a like a statement win, or a oh she should have like an Oscar win when somebody wins for something, they're like they should have won 5 years ago. This was a
Yeah.
compensation, that kind of thing. Um, the idea of getting mad at the person getting the trophy, I think, is sometimes a little silly. I think it's like
And they
they
do
didn't
it almost
ask.
every year, and I think it eats the industry inside out.
Yeah.
I mean,
Um,
it's one of the only credible institutions. The only reason why the first venue, DuPont Underground, which was 15 square feet, donated to me, which would have cost thousands of dollars, the only reason why they signed that insurance contract was because of my partnership with Beehoff. Because in DC, in the institutional world, in the political world, BHOF has much more weight than 99% of the rest of the industry in regard to these institutions, regardless of who's
Hmm.
president, regardless of what side the political spectrum's on at the moment. That respect of institutions, again, we can go back to colonialism and misogyny. I'm not supporting the system. I'm just acknowledging the frame we're in. Like, what container are we in? We're in capitalism run by the government. The government values 501c3s, and this happens to be the one that's almost serving as like a union, a competition, a legends fundraiser. It's like a
A
history preservation.
reunion, all of these
It's our
things. Yeah.
union, basically. And I don't think we're operating as such. And
Yeah.
so we're just going to constantly have this disconnect. But to the commercial world, BHOF is kind of like the only thing that I see being taken seriously from institutional and funding perspectives. I
But
mean, I
even then,
don't
we're not seeing them on Good Morning
know.
America. Like
Yeah, of
the
course.
we're it's and which is such a
We
fucking
see
shame
Dita. We
because
see Miss Dita. We love her. She just followed me on
but
Instagram,
even
but
but even Dita and I have to admit I've never met Dita. I've been in her presence once in a theatrical uh element, but she doesn't when she's on something like Good Morning America, if in fact she is, because I remember seeing her on Wendy Williams. I remember seeing her on some late night. Um, they would mention burlesque in sort of like a passing situation, but we still have to go through the ex-husband. We still have to go through the fact that she doesn't own pajamas, or not pajamas. She doesn't own jeans, something like that.
what she's
We
wearing
still
to the
have to
grocery store.
go.
Yeah. The
We still
capris.
have to go through her waist. And we still have to go through like maybe her skincare or her lingerie or something like that. We don't really talk about her as an artist or her even really her as an entertainer or what draws her to it or why it's exciting.
Hmm.
Um,
The
because a lot
glamour.
of that, yeah, we don't talk about anything beyond a lot of fairly superficial stuff and her proximity to superficial stuff, frankly.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I think still a lot of people, she's famous, but I don't know if everyone knows what she does. You know what I mean? Like
Definitely not.
yeah. Because if I mean, generally speaking, I find that if I'm saying that I'm a burlesque performer, a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's really cool. What does that mean?"
Right.
A lot of that, which is and it's such a shame, really, because we've had Lulu and Samson and Honeybee and Jezebel and now Jin, who are all such capable speakers on the topic.
And spokespeople, right.
I would love to see them break it down on something like that because or get I don't even this is
Like, I think
an
it is an
upsell, but
ecosystem. That's why I really value what you do. Like, you are one of the only like standing like media outlets we have.
mm,
So I ask I literally have these conversations with my friends like all the time, and sometimes I really do question my mental health about it. Like, what is it that people are not wanting it and a look into this world. I mean, we have documentary, we, like you said, we have all these things, but it's
mm,
never really punched through. And I think it's a combination of like, one, like, if the rest of the world really knew this art form was as freeing and healing as it has been for many of us, I think that would
mm,
counter a lot of the war and violence running the planet. I think too, it's rooted in a feminine and queer art form. And therefore, if those are the people like leading this art form, or if there's reverence to these groups, like to who we are, like that goes against like the white male patriotic message. And then like the last thing is I truly believe that people hold so much shame. The gym I was running before I came into burlesque was all about like a shame-free space. And I taught thousands of people, and to see people like dance without shame is a very truly spiritual experience.
mm,
Particularly, like, trigger warning, like, I am of a Somali immigrant. I'm the first woman in my family not to have genital mutilation, female genital mutilation. So truly, like, in my family lineage, this is huge. Like, I'm the first person to experience pleasure between my legs.
man.
So I think like with all of that, it's like we need to dance. And I think burlesque is not necessarily dancing, but it's this freedom of expression that I think threatens the status quo. And so sometimes getting sponsors or audience, it's not even about like people discriminating against us. It's a mirror they can't hold. It's too intense to see
Mm.
you happy and me happy shaking our bodies without shame, and they can barely like go to the beach and like feel okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, because we're not being sold anything
Hmm.
too. I think that's a big part of it too, is that if you can't sell us our body autonomy, if you can't sell us ways to make us conform, I mean, there's a reason that when I'm asked what makeup I use, for example, because I get a lot of clown white questions because the face, but I use a lot of high pigment eyeshadow. I was like, you got to find Juvia's Place, and you've got to find a lot of black owned businesses because Kimchi is another great example,
Hmm.
because they will do high pigment, and right now. For the last couple years, Maybelline is dealing in earth tones, and I don't have time for earth tones. I
Hmm.
just don't. That's not my brand. And when I first started really exploring like NYX eyeshadows, when they had this acid green, that was the first one I got, and I was like, I
Dix's
love it.
foundations.
And then somewhere along the lines, they stopped being you know, in
Hmm.
my CVS, and I'm like,
Oh yeah, I can never find my shade anywhere.
no,
Everybody
yeah.
says.
So, and even and obviously because we have our proponents of this is what you're supposed to look like. This is how our beauty specialists, our influencers, or things like that. And since I'm a clown sort of persona, I get that I'm sort of playing against the grain.
Hmm.
But the idea that we can't then buy our costumes or our accoutrement in manufactured stores. Like I don't know, like I've talked to a lot of people like when we first started in the mid 2000s, my contemporaries, it was the Target bra. People went to
Hmm.
Target because they had the frilly lacy bra and it was something they could base off of. It was the era of like the booty shorts where like the little I don't know, pantaloonish sort of
A little
situation.
cinch. Yeah.
And Torrid was really leaning into like exposed
We have
corsetry.
rainbows
Uh,
today, but
Yeah.
the tariffs with the rhinestones, I felt that. We don't have party cities anymore. Like it's a lot harder and like not shopping on Amazon is extremely difficult. I just
Do you
like
know
this
what where
like
Party City is now? Staples.
oh my God, yes. But I'm like
Staples has a Party City area, and that blows my mind.
also, I don't know. I have one day that like somebody's gonna hand me a big lot of money because most costume stores are like closing like across
I know.
everywhere. So yeah, like just even finding, like you said, like these things. I mean, you just have to like dig in the thrift store and pray.
Well, we're gonna talk about burlesque as a overarching, troublesome goose as we keep going. But I want to get a little bit more personal. I want to hear more about where you started. So, have you always been in DC?
Yeah, I live right outside of DC in Maryland. I was born and raised in Rockville, Maryland, and then
Okay.
by proxy of DC, like my whole world kind of like evolved out of the city, but I'm a suburban girl.
All right. I had my mom had family in College Park, so we spent a
Oh
lot of
my God, I
time
went to
in.
University of Maryland, go Terps.
There you go.
Yeah, my background's in early childhood special education. So in my previous life, I ran track at Maryland and I was like going toward the trajectory of like being a kinesiologist, maybe being a doctor, but I didn't want to do any of that.
What? Say that phrase,
A
that word one more time.
kinesiologist, like,
Tell me what
like
that is.
working with people's muscles and kind of like a
Ah,
trainer
okay.
but my actual degree is in family science because my family has a child care. So, like, I've always been around babies. My sister has Down syndrome. So, like, I've always kind of been doing Special Olympics. So, I thought I was going to go that track, like being a teacher, which I did. I like taught for a little bit. I went to Texas and to Teach for America, tried to be a Cowboys cheerleader while I was there. Ended up on the show, didn't make it, but it's okay. And then I came back to DC for my master's in American, and that's when I kind of went on my political. I got into like politics. I was being kind of groomed to run. I like advised Mayor Bowser. I worked for my state senator. I worked at New America. I worked at a lot of think tanks lobbying, like I said, for early child education, paid family
Yeah.
leave, and I did that because the classroom was like very traumatizing for me. I don't identify with having a traumatic childhood. They were definitely like not perfect, but like I had a
Yeah.
pretty middle income. Like my parents were immigrants. They
Same.
worked
Yeah.
full
I every once in a while
time.
I have to think about that. I'm like, you know what? Things were all right.
It was fine. Like I was raised by the TV. Like I guess worse things could have happened, but I really didn't experience like poverty and trauma till I started teaching in Dallas. And that like really made me sick. And so then I moved back to get my master's, and then I've been here ever since. And burlesque kind of fell into my lap because like honestly I needed money and I wanted to dance, and I had kind of failed in other areas. Like I tried to do the pro cheer thing and I made a bunch of different prep teams. I never made it. I had a commercial agent, which I still have, but she's not very happy with me right now, but I struggle with that. I don't get most bookings because I'm still too short. I'm considered athletic build, so I don't, I'm being compared to like 5'9" Sudanese dark skin, like gorgeous people, which is cool. Um, and then like I've always kind of had this like tie to the disability community because that's always kind of been what I've done on the side, whether work with my sister or her teammates. So yeah, I kind of do a little mixing of advocacy, and then I went working for myself fully like in 2020, which was a combination of like performing, and then I still to this day do like nonprofit consulting and advocacy. And then like as like things come up, particularly like when big things come up, whether it was like the big major moments were like 2020, usually during election cycles. I sat out after 2016. Like I really like was like I'm going to transition more to like arts activism. So I did
Hmm.
a lot of like during the pandemic for like a vaccine campaign. We like rushed Constitution Avenue, and I did a lot of organized protesting.
Yeah.
You see, so that's I like to say it's like corporate.
Yeah.
um, so like I would oftentimes get paid to put on political activism campaigns, like get your attention on like what the Democratic Party was doing or what this healthcare bill was doing. We would like dance to Kendrick Lamar in front of the Supreme Court to like get NPR and the news to, pay attention to the news case that was going on. So
Sure.
DC is a very interesting place. It's a transient place. Obviously used to be Chocolate City, and no, it's kind of losing that essence. But the burlesque scene is quite interesting here. Obviously, it's where I started, and I have much gratitude for that. But there's a lot of non-unity because I think it's a transient city, and therefore I think a lot of the burlesque is a lot of the producers that produce now are like lawyers or engineers or like they're well-to-do and they do this for fun, which is totally cool. But then we get into like the economics of working performers versus performers that like have a partner, a 50, a
Hmm.
401k, and
Hmm.
all that. But DC is a beautiful place. I love it. I'm spending a lot more time in Baltimore now, but yeah, I live kind of in between the two of them.
It's interesting. You mentioned the sort of what we would refer to sometimes as hobbyist burlesque. Then is the folks who do it for fun. And in theory, aren't we supposed to all be doing this for fun?
Yeah.
But the ones who don't depend on it as a major source of income, because again, we have to commodify every interest that we have. If you enjoy sewing, I hope you're making costumes for other people. If you enjoy painting, I hope you're selling your
I hope
paintings.
you
If you,
start
I hope you have an
painting.
Etsy store. Yeah, exactly.
That's a
And then you
good,
burn
that's,
the.
I'm gonna say that the next time somebody's like, I should do this. I'm like, should you?
You want to burn the fuck out? Let's see. Let's find out. Um, and what's interesting there is that in that case, being affluent or having security or a safety net, whatever hyperbole you want to use, to indicate that it's okay if you don't work every Friday, Saturday night, or if you miss that booking, or if you're a little bit more discerning about your
Yeah,
bookings, or frankly, don't mind taking that $25 booking because it's just only money.
I don't mind at all. It's for
Um,
fun.
it's just for fun.
Yeah.
Uh, on the twist of that, we look down on folks who don't have that safety net, that hyperbolic
Hmm.
cushion, and take that $25, or don't do the grind, or don't hit the pavement, or treat this sort of as a hobby.
Hmm.
I find that to be an interesting, relationship. We also have this relationship with compensation when it comes to festivals, when it comes to um travel, when it comes to what we're putting out. How many gigs should we accept to pay for this costume that we
Hmm.
have? Um, is burlesque not going to hit that zeitgeist moment until we fully engage in the capitalism of it all? Do you think?
I don't know.
I don't know.
My perception of all these have changed as I've like started to headline and travel. So I
Mm.
think it's totally different
As you
experience.
become part of the problem?
Yeah, I'm definitely, I definitely take accountability. Like I ran two town halls in DC. My first few years. The first one was in person and it was beautiful. Like a lot of people like made up. I was kind of coming in like, guys, I don't know what happened, but like, is there a reason why we're all like floating around $50? Like, is there a reason, particularly in DC, where you have to make $190,000 per household to like be like comfortable? Like, and then the second time there was a lot of like lip service, but nothing turned. And so I don't necessarily think it needs to adhere to capitalism. Like everybody needs to like have this paid show where everybody's paid like this amount. When I travel and I notice the strongest communities, in my opinion, there is so much respect and reverence for those who are putting their dreams on the line.
Mhm.
Um, Compared to people who do this as a supplementary way to connect, to have fun, to express themselves. So I noticed this hugely in Europe because like in
Mm.
Europe, like no one's really doing it full time. Like everybody, I felt more of like, I felt in Europe, like everybody takes burlesque like really seriously, but like they all have jobs and they all do their own thing. But there's such respect for those small few that like do it full time.
Mhm.
This way a lot in a lot of Midwest cities, a lot of places where like uh people are very like oppressed in like their form of expression, or it might not be safe where they are, so the community is a lot tighter, and I think therefore those who have more expertise or more willing to put their talent out there, I just feel like there's more respect as opposed to some of these
Mm.
larger cities where everybody's kind of like mushed together. I think it does get a little muddy because again, we have privileged people who like, if the average household, if you're making $175,000 and you're like, I can take that $25 gig, but then I have a bunch of people over here where they're relying on this to pay their rent and they can't even get access to those $50 gigs, even if they wanted to reject
Yeah.
it. Like they're not getting booked. I don't know. One observation like that I've made, I would love to hear your opinion on this, is like everywhere I go, I feel like the people who do rely on the income like aren't booked locally. And I don't know if it's because they get priced out. I've heard this from Miss Exotic World. I've heard this from people who just, and when I say full time, I'm not saying full time performer. When I'm saying full
Mhm.
time, you could have a podcast, you could be running a school, you could be a costumer, like in the realm of you create
Right.
art and
Mhm.
rely on an
Mhm.
exchange, monetary exchange.
Mhm.
I just noticed like everywhere this year specifically, I would like interview producers and performers on my day off, and they would say to me like, I'm not booked. I have to travel. So then you're spending more money traveling because you can't get work at home. I think that's actually more of an issue than whether we're going to go full. I don't think, unfortunately, in America, I do think you have to go full capitalism if we want any type of like union. Um, with the Cat's Jellicle Ball thing, started to jump around. One thing I'm
Yeah, no,
hearing
please.
about the reason why they're not breaking even is because it's a large cast, and that cast is not just the bodies on stage, it's the physical
True.
therapist that's required, it's the union breaks that the costumers need when they're on set for however many hours. So because they have pushed for this unionization and everybody's getting that baseline, well, now the production costs are up. So even if they sell out at 90% occupancy, they haven't broken even because the costs are so high. So I feel like that's a really good lesson that I'm going to
Mhm.
like follow, is like, okay, this is like this magical piece of art. It's beautiful. It's like it's a masterpiece and it can't withstand Broadway. If To me that's kind of like a sign of what's going to come over the next few years.
Yeah. Well, even ones that would be fairly more I mean, I think Death Becomes Her also recently shut
Mhm.
down, and that's
And Betty Boop. Yeah.
far more in the mold of the Broadway world. Jellicle, I think, is something of a of an outlier
Yeah.
because it's particularly the fact that this show is having a renaissance after the film is
Isn't that
sort of an
crazy?
amazing concept alone. Because the film was such a monumental punchline,
Hmm.
that it needed to be repackaged to get to go somewhere. Um, and again, sort of lapping onto the the kind of legendary uh the the TV show sort of era, the
Hmm.
panel discussion of I mean Madonna used it in Celebration when she did Vogue with the signs. We have these sort of touchstone moments to remind us that these are parts of it. Angelical having investors who would say, yeah, I could see making money off of that, is also
Hmm.
part of the thing too, because
Hmm.
the larger the board of directors, the larger the people then can twist the neck in different
Hmm.
directions and say, well, this is what we want out of it.
Hmm.
And then you also have to work with the confines of what Broadway has with its own unions. I think the dancers union is different than the acting union, which is different
Yep.
than the musicians union, which is different than all of this. Um, and
But
not
to me, their
necessarily does.
core like constraints are with
Mm,
the unionization of the rates because in order for them to have this budget, I
hmm
don't think it's necessarily about is the art good or not, which I
mm,
oftentimes feel like in burlesque, we're having so many arguments about whether the art's good or not. That's not even the issue right now. The issue is like, can people do this sustainably? Because even back in the day for my records, like they were
mm.
making way more money back in the day. Obviously there were different, there were different circuits and there were different theater, they didn't
And
have the internet.
agents, for one
Yeah, they
thing.
had agents. They didn't have
Yeah.
social media. They didn't have OnlyFans and all these things, but
They would get press. They would get, even if it was like page six, it was still like
it was something.
notoriety. Notoriety.
I
But
think
then
we're
again,
I just think we're eating each other down. So like before we can even get there, we pull the person down before we can even before they can even cross the finish line. Like I'm really proud of like
mhm,
Jezebel Thunder. I think she's done a
mm,
great job like going on podcasts, making herself
yeah,
accessible on social media and like being one bound with one band, one sound. Like burlesque is
yeah.
great. You should explore it. You should hear what it is. And even it shouldn't matter whether the person's like a hobbyist or not. I think it's about understanding like what we're up against. Um,
Well, because also hobby doesn't mean the same thing it used to mean too.
Absolutely not.
Um, we are commodifying our hobbies. We do have the Etsy store if that's your thing that you like. We expect you to go to the farmer's market if you have a tomato garden. Like there's a certain element of if you develop something that has a product or an
Hmm.
outcome or something that's finished when you're done, well,
Hmm.
then what do you do with it? And even now, our conversation will be turned into an MP3
Hmm.
that will then go out. And in theory, if I had the wherewithal, I would be able to knock on doors and say, see, this is why this is valid. Invest
Hmm.
in this.
Hmm.
Invest in this, but don't ask for anything. Please don't
I
ask
think that's the key.
anything.
Other people's money. There's a black billionaire. I forgot his name, Michael, but he's really into pushing that venture capital allow people play money because they've allowed
Mm,
all these white men in like Silicon Valley to like have no penalty with their experimentation. So I'm personally like on the hunt for like billionaires that are just like you said, God bless you, like
thank you.
handing you money or sponsorship without like politically combining you or
Yeah.
without editing or censoring like your essence and just allowing you to occupy space as is with their money.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to Pucks about this, because Silver Tusk Awards is going I'm asking for partners and sponsors in a more direct way than I ever had before. And I'm actually asking, and I was like, the idea of my bread and butter has always been other burlesquers because that's who I talk to, that's who I hang out with. And when I did Rocky Horror, all of the people that I talked to were other Rocky Horror people. When I was doing community theater, those were all the people that I hung out with. So in burlesque, what's really interesting is that we all have something else in addition to being in burlesque that we also talk about. Like we have everybody from, retail to neuroscience. Um, and the idea that, and again, a lot of us are also side gigging when it comes to those other things that we do that we then can commodify. We do have people who also sell their classes, also sell their time, also sell their pasties, their glitter, in addition to what they do as entertainers. And the idea of constantly asking other entertainers for their limited resources is a struggle, is a difficult ask at this time. And so I'm like, how do I find people who aren't us? I've spent 20 years only talking to us.
Mhm.
And
Well,
it's
I
difficult.
mean, I think you can get sponsors. We could definitely talk about that later because
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
there with like, am I ethically like should I be asking this pool of people? Now, I
Right.
think there's arguments to that. Like, if people are, I don't judge how people spend their money, but if you're going to spend a money on an ounce of weed, you can send $5 for like the podcast to
Mm.
keep running, or for this legend, or for this.
Well, that was the
uh
whole thing of that coffee app, right? For the cost of a coffee. The idea of
yeah,
like
you
you
know
can
what I mean.
then,
Like,
yeah.
but I also think like the same like constraints. I think again, I'm using Burlesque Hall of Fame as like our union. I'm not like specifically coming for Behoff, but
It sounds
I've
like you
always
are.
thought it was kind
No,
of
I'm kidding.
wild
I'm
that
kidding.
the competition was just isolated to like mixed exotic world.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm like, well, why don't we have like fashion designer of the year? Why don't we have photographer of the year? I really like how your awards are like talking about other people in the industry. Because I think we would have such a larger pool of supporters if we would get out of our echo chamber and stop going just like me to you, you to me.
Hmm.
But this idea of like the entire ecosystem, the stage managers, um, how can we like bring them in, value their art at the same weight we value somebody who wins a title? I think that would help immensely and to open the pool of word of mouth. I think from my background in like entrepreneurship, like burlesque is an incredibly hard product to sell. It's not intuitive. It's not something you can say in 30 seconds. You kind of have to explain it. Then we have to talk about the sex work thing and we have to talk about the nudity thing there's a lot going on. So I think the sponsors like are important and I know it's not good, but we joke, me and my circle friends joke all the time like, if like Behoff like was on Kalshi, I don't think we'd have to be arguing about money. I think we would see immensely high numbers. That's why I would never pursue that
Yeah.
because I know ethically this group of people would bet a lot of money to see who would win Miss Exotic World. And if I can see the numbers from Love Island, from the World Cup, like how much millions of dollars people are gambling, I actually would bet that this type of thing would work. I'm not saying you should go on Kalshi,
No, 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 no. Yeah, I
but
get you.
I
I
think
get
the
you.
people that would find like I look at burlesque as just really weird, like F1, like very niche, but something that like people who go there for whatever reason, people who go to F1, like I don't get it. I'm not trying to pay thousands of dollars to see a car circle around, but the people who do are fanatically into it. They're
Yeah,
into it. I feel like burlesque would be the same for the average consumer of it. Like I think they'd be into it. Like, what do you mean there's a competition where people take
I
their
mean they
clothes
are.
off and they
There's
get
also
judged based on
performers.
art? Yeah, but I'm
They're
just
just
saying, like people
also.
who are nothing to do with burlesque,
uh,
I think they would fly to wherever once a year and spend $8,000 to $2,000 that have they are not performers and they just want to see the spectacle of all these
mm,
different bodies and diversities and artistic forms colliding
yeah,
over a time. But I think there's a resistance to want to break the commercial seal too. I feel
sure.
like there's this like old guard that's like like ballroom. Like a lot of people saying ballroom's dead because it broke the seal. So now people are getting signed to
Yeah,
Nike and Red Bull, and now it's no longer, now it's no longer about soft and cunt. It's how many tricks you can do because you're getting these deals. So
reveals. If you don't come out in something that looks like a sleeping bag, what's the act going to
then,
be?
you know, but I think the sponsors have to come from outside, and I think it comes from us opening the community up. We love to be like this. I think we need to open it up.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if burlesque. Can you imagine if we had a Law Roach or even a Simon
No, like I just
Cowell?
feel like we're leaving so many people out of the conversation by fixating on the performer. I mean, in one of my
Yeah,
blogs, I even brought her out like to me, somebody who's an equivalent to a Miss Exotic World, but would never have access to that titles like a Donna Touch.
yeah. But I meant
Manu.
actually just also the criticism and the if we had like a burlesque star TV show or concept, and we've had elements. The idea of accepting criticism as burlesque performers is already going to be pretty touchy because
Oh yeah.
we're struggling in that intersection between art and entertainment already and
Mhm.
self-expression. And this is a statement, this is what I
This is
mean.
my life.
But but are they going to clap? Like that, because that's also a
People need to pay
major.
$95 for that. That's what I said on my stories the other day. Does somebody that need to take off from work, save, find childcare, or find parking? Is it we know how much things cost, so
Yeah,
it's kind
yeah.
of weird because when it comes to like I want to almost say it's like all a hobby. You know what I mean? Because like we're all artists, so like at the end of the day, like I want to express myself. I don't necessarily like want the money. I want money for like
We
ability.
want stardom. We want recognition.
Yeah, we want
And
recognition for
recognition is very frequently in the sign of a check
yeah,
nowadays or a
yeah. It can
trophy.
come through other ways, but for the most
Yeah,
part, it's through the money. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Um, and it's funny, I've had this conversation with a lot of I love to ask like seasoned, like like people I really respect this question of like what the show. So
Yeah.
like Lady Josephine's answer was totally different from Michelle Amore. Michelle Amore brought up the whole like we can't critique bodies on camera if it was genuinely like an American Idol RuPaul situation, because that's not what RuPaul's doing. Like RuPaul, it's a game show, but they're not actually critiquing the vessel. And so would this require, like, that was like Michelle's take to me. And then Lady Josephine's take was like, but what would the appeal be? And I'm like, well, to me, I feel like it would be like Project Runway. Like 1 week you have to make your own costume. Next week you gotta do a singing strip. Next week you gotta do Nerdless. Like I feel like that would be that would work. I think it's more about like who would that be? When the
Yeah.
Summer Walker thing happened where she was like sitting in the poop water when her
Yeah.
water turned brown. At first I was coming from this thing. I was like, oh, I love it, but she needs to call somebody. But then I found out Donna made the fans. And then I had to check my own ego, like, hold on. She actually did book a burlesque designer, and I cannot discredit that just because she didn't book burlesque artists. Now she did book Pole and Fire and Acro and everybody else,
Yes.
but people in ostrich feathers. But I had to check my judgment and be like, no, actually, you know what? That's a win for us. And I need to amplify that win and make sure people understand this is just as big as Missing.org, because it kind of happened at the same time. And of course, I'm giving reverence to like, I don't know about you, but I've been watching Missing.org now for a few years, way less than you, but I'm new to the camp. But this was the first time I wasn't confused. It was the first time I was like, oh wait, I get every single reason why. And I don't know if that's because I have more knowledge on what I'm looking at or whatever, but I felt very like, wow, it's great to see those people up there. And I think that happening at the same time as the Summer Walker tour and Donna getting those opportunities, I see it happening slowly, but I still think our eyes are wandering in the wrong areas and we're not really fixated on like, where are the wins? Where, Donna does this, but like Donna has another job. I don't know, but most of us are making income other ways, like if not all.
Hey, this is Viktor Devonne, and I like socks. I've always been very open about my appreciation for the fabric that goes on my feet, and I want you to enjoy them too. Please go to footclothes.com, look at the variety of fabulous novelty socks that do not suck, and indulge. You can get 10% off now with the name Viktor Devonne as a promo code. That's VIKTORDEVONNE. Put it all together, no spaces, and enjoy.
Tonight on Murder, She Wrote.
Hooray!
Hey.
Yeah.
It's kind of Piper Laurie and Brenda Vaccaro at A Love Child.
Thank goodness.
I want to know
His
her.
nails. Yeah, where's her series? That's what
She's
I want.
fabulous.
The son is Joaquin Phoenix.
I know, isn't that nuts? And he is an ugly little kid. I'm sorry.
We're just like, hey, remember when this guy was in this obscure Broadway show in 1976?
Right? Look at him in those tight pants. Yum.
Because there's not
But
a
we
lot
do
really
get-
going on. It's
Yeah.
supposed, I mean, unless you're listening to the dialogue, which frankly, audience at home, you can do without us. We're just
Yeah, do
learning
your own
about
work,
some of these
damn it.
backstory. But
Right.
Boswell put her up to it.
Yeah.
And then Trish had to be killed because she realized that Boswell didn't have her interests at heart because Teddy was the inheritor.
Yeah.
Playing her like a fiddle.
Oswell knew it, and Trish just gulped it down like one of those martinis.
And then tossed it onto the lawn.
And then lost her head. Poor Trish.
Trish loses her head. This is Viktor Devonne.
And this is Petra Fried
And this is Tonight.
on Murder, She Wrote.
Right. Well, the thing is also when we compare it to something like a Project Runway or a model or a Drag Race, and I'll use Drag Race because it's the most related to performance as opposed to, all these
Or
other
Boulet
elements.
Brothers, Dragula, yeah.
Yeah, similar as well, is that they're taking very frequently malleable talent they can then um form. And even if they come into the if they come into the competition, you have your Bianca Del Rio, who is very self-assured, does not
Hmm.
need your critiques.
Doesn't care.
Um,
Yeah.
exactly. But we'll take the note and we'll adjust things for the win if they need to. Or unapologetically say, well, this is how it is. This is just how it is. Um, and unfortunately, I think unfairly get labeled that she, quote, wore the same thing every time. When you actually, if you stack all of those outfits together, no, she didn't. And also,
She
it's
didn't.
not
And also, like clowns and other people, they do the same act for 40 years. I don't really I never got that argument.
the idea of having the hubris of coming into a competition and saying, I am fully formed, this is what I'm giving you, is kind of repugnant to RuPaul
With
because
also
that's not what they
$30,000
want.
of costumes you now have to have that they're recommending you have
Yeah.
before. Like, I just listened to A&R executive talking about like the delusion of artists today of like wanting stardom before wanting to hit stardom and then want the artist development instead of like the artist development is
This
what you
influencer culture,
get
yeah.
there. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
like Bianca was like already even like with like a lot of top models, some of these people are already coming in full formed. And we know when it comes to
Mhm.
television, much like I'm watching Love Island and I'm looking at like what they're
There's
putting on
casting.
TV. Yeah, when you're younger, you're more naive, they're easier to craft the story. But I always come back to like, but if we were doing it, well, how would
Yeah.
we kind of address these things? I do think we need television. I don't necessarily think it need to be traditional. I think it could happen on a YouTube or it can happen like on a Netflix. I feel as though a lot of the documentaries, I haven't seen this latest one. It's on my list to see, but most of the burlesque documentaries I've seen are historically based,
Mhm.
and the next gen is not watching that. So we're gonna
No,
have to
and depending on what you're watching,
edutainment
like
this up.
I think if some people, if Exposed, for example, was their first version of burlesque, they would be very confused
Yeah.
compared to your Christina Aguilera,
Mhm.
your Absinthe in Vegas situation, because that one's of a certain era as well. That one's of a specific time, and besides the fact that it's like a lot of vulva, a
You
lot
know,
of
I don't know how we're gonna
subculture.
get through the pasties, but I was like, but they have naked and afraid. They have all these shows like
Yeah,
behind paywall. So I just feel like, yeah, we might have to be. I, I've also thought about Zeus. You know, I'm like, you know what? I know that the people might hate me if we try this on Zeus, but I feel
I
like
don't know
we
what that
could.
is. What is this?
Zeus is a free. I feel like I'm taking you down a black hole.
All right,
Enjoy going down the black hole today with
all
Zeus
right.
Network. But a Zeus Network is very controversial and it has a lot of trash television. It has a lot of free things on it. But I
Okay.
think our target market of like fans that will really be into it are there. And then I think from there we can move up to Netflix or Peacock. But I think we do need, even if it's just the behind the scenes of
Yeah.
understanding like what this is, because I think it would be fascinating to all parties. Like, what do you mean there's this art form where there's all this drama? People are like, I think even the crowdfunding is like fascinating because it's becoming more and more intense, where it's like, we need to talk about this. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously everybody's hungry, but like there's so many aspects to this. Or again, the campiness of us wearing, thousands of dollars of dead birds and like not being able to pay our basic utilities.
Yeah.
I think it's
Well,
interesting.
a lot of these reality shows are really based on personalities off stage, and I
Right.
don't know if we are.
You don't think it's tea off stage?
Oh, it's
Like
brilliant. Oh,
I
it's
want to
brilliant.
follow Angie Patani.
But
I
do we
want to
have the
go to
vulnerability for that? Do
I
we
want to go to
have?
Mr. Gorgeous house. Who Mr. Gorgeous dated? I want to know. I just want to know these things. I want to go hang out with Isaiah, and I want to go to
I
the
would
what's
love it too. I would absolutely love it too. I
but is
just
it just
don't
us
know.
or what? Yeah.
But it's the proximity that, no, it's not even just like, do I think that there's an interest? Because I think packaged correctly,
Hmm.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, because again, most of these reality shows that are based on a shtick, it's about
Hmm.
the people. and it's about
Hmm.
the interaction. It's about just like the juxtaposition between personalities. And we are a crayon box of neurodivergence in our scene.
Absolutely.
You throw us in a Big Brother house, and there's going to be stuff.
You
Um,
know,
and I don't know if we could get the genie back in the lamp after we do that for the first time. And I think maybe that's why we
I
hedge.
agree.
I mean, maybe that's
Yeah. I
why.
mean, I mean, with the RuPaul thing, I thought about going on RuPaul for a second and I saw that contract. I was like, no thanks.
I
I
mean,
think, I think it's work for some people. I mean, I
yeah,
can see like I think what RuPaul has done really well is like open the door, and then people ran from there. And
yeah,
I have to respect all the universes that came out. Like they say, like Richard Pryor has a universe, Madonna has a universe. Like RuPaul created a universe now that after RuPaul leaves, all of these people now have financial mobility in their personal life due to this franchise. So I can't see why it wouldn't be worth trying.
hmm
Um,
but
and
all of
I think it's unique
the
characters. I
really,
think,
yeah. Sorry, please, yeah,
the reason why I was bringing up Project Runway along with RuPaul is because most of the people I think that would have to get casted on this would have to be connoisseurs in other fields. So you either got to sew down,
right.
you need to be
That
comedic, like
takes
doing
me out.
stand up. Like there have to be. Well, no, I mean, we need clowns. I think it would also be cool to like use this as an opportunity to educate people on the proximity to sex work. Like a lot of,
Yeah.
one thing we're going to do in the Denver exhibit will be the last exhibit we do this fall is that one's going to be really focused. It'll be the first time we do like everybody wants to be a showgirl global. So it'll be people from all demographic groups. And we're really focusing on commerce, sex work, and striptease. So like, where is this connection of like money and taking
Mm,
your clothes off and sex work? Because from my research, like many people rely on sex work to supplement the burlesque.
yes.
um and a lot of sex workers use burlesque as the mask to like make income other ways.
Mm.
And so this idea of like, how do we educate people on strippers, on dominatrixes, on people who are
Cam
adjacent
girls,
to
all
us,
kinds of folks. Yeah,
cam girls, all of that.
yeah,
I think that could all kind of be subtle themes, like sub themes of the show. Are we ready to have those conversations as a
yeah,
collective? I don't think in this administration, but I'm already ready for the next one. So I think
yeah.
I think in presidential terms. That's just like my background. So I'm always thinking in like 4 to 8 year increments, just because I know how the politics will move from. And unfortunately, I don't know. I'm not. I'm warming myself up to another conservative candidate. So that means the arts funding is going to take it's going to take a little longer. It will always swing back though. So I know it's going to come back. I don't think it might happen immediately overnight.
It's going to be really interesting because whatever happens, I mean, now, I mean, everyone was pro JD Vance, and I say everyone, meaning on that side,
Mhm.
for a minute, and then again started eating itself, and now they seem to be pro Rubio. They don't have allegiance, which is another thing.
Mhm.
Um, I have a lot to say about the Democratic Party and its inability to just fucking do something.
Mhm.
But and I also have a lot to say when it comes to whoever is running the Dem account. Also Gavin Newsom, who's my governor, and a lot of these folks who are playing the game
Mhm.
alongside, like anyone who's trying to troll Donald Trump, you've already lost.
Yeah.
You've already
We gotta
lost.
move on. Yeah. We have to have policies in place. Like I always challenge people around election time. I'm like, I'm not going to tell you who to vote. I just need you to go to their website and read their policies. It's pretty
Well,
clear from there.
because we're already in the Big Brother house, then like we're already
Yeah, just
doing that.
go
Like
on
we're
Google and
actually.
like just go Google what they believe in, and it's pretty clear who's going to vote in your best interest. But I
Yeah.
always have to
Well, we
kind
have
of
so many
framework.
wedge issues right now, though. We have so many wedges that
Well, I
are
mean,
really.
one thing about the exhibit that's really been contentious with my like advisors and with community partners is the idea that I'm like centering blackness. And I didn't intend to start with that. When I sat with Dustin and Behoff, and originally we were like, okay, the museum's closed. We're gonna do this pop up. We're just gonna like do it. And he was like, great. So then we start going through the inventory, and it was like very little black inventory for a myriad of reasons that is not blamed on Dustin. But I was like, okay, well, I have a lot of black elders and people in the community telling me they don't want to work with Behoff, and there seems to be a lot of tension in regard to these artifacts not getting the love that they probably could have got. So how about we do this? We're going to focus on Black performers, and we are going to kind of start this conversation around a corrective record. Many people before me have tried to do this. Many people. And it's always kind of started and fizzled out for many reasons. I think the first time, I think it happened because so many of us actually could bond around the idea of our histories being erased. One message: if it's not shown now, it will not be shown. The museum's closed. And I think right now we're in a technological revolution. So every day we are not visible to people to see the beauty we have to offer. I think it's a missed opportunity. And now that I'm being mentored by Danny in Davenport, and she has her Ecclesias Arts Museum, like this to me is like a lifeline for the art form to keep at the forefront of the conversation. So I started with Black, not only because like I identify as a Black performer, but because I think there's been a lot of virtue signaling with Black bookings, meaning after George Floyd, it was like, let me just put a Black person on the roster, honey, so they don't sniff up my ass. Let me just make sure it looks good. Let me put one big body on there. Let me put one trans girl in there. Let me just make sure it looks good. And what that has done is almost like made it worse because we can't actually see when things are being done because it's truly equitable or because you just don't want to be called out for actually being subconsciously racist. I mean, it's okay. We all have biases. But I mean, that's why I'm always
And
going
then
to
it's hard to criticize them because then you're taking away a Black person or a trans person or any of these intersections job. Because if we
right,
criticize you
right,
after you've done that, well
right.
then what do
And the
you
thing is,
want?
I felt it. I waited till I was like, oh no, they're definitely back on the all white skinny girl train for sure, 100% now. Because I'm back to being in shows where I'm the only Black person.
Mm,
Um, and it's uncomfortable because it wasn't like that like 2 3 years ago when I was first getting bookings. But again, they didn't shoot MLK over fighting for Black rights. They shot MLK over economics. And so that's why I do want the exhibit to start evaluating wage because I think with the Democratic Party, I consider myself like a really like loud criticizer of the party because I feel like I dedicated my 20s to them and I have a right to critique from as somebody on the inside. And I think they always want to skip over like the working class conversation. So it's always like lead with identity. Okay, that's great. But like I cannot not work with you because you're not Black and you can't not work with me because we're white. We need to bond over what we can bond over so that we can have solidarity and like look at the bigger monster at play. Like we're not
right.
enemies. Nobody that's of the working class should be fighting each other or critiquing
Well, we're
each
seeing
other
that with
harder than they are.
the GLB without the T folks.
You know what I'm
We're seeing that
saying?
there, yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of misogyny, there's a lot of homophobia, there's a lot of transphobia happening. And I think it's
Yeah.
like we can blame Trump, but like nobody, like that's one person. Like we all have personal
No, it's
autonomy.
the voters. It's the Trump.
Yeah. So
It's
like
what Trump
they voted for him
represents.
twice, whether they
Yeah.
cheated or not, it's irrelevant. There's plenty of people, including my family members I no longer speak to, who voted for him. So there are people who voted for him. It is what it is. You know, I can't have that argument like I used to when I was younger. Now it's kind of like, what are you doing? And I
Yeah.
think right now burlesque needs unity. I think there are a lot of Black performers that have told me stories that are quite heartbreaking, but I don't think they're in isolation. I think there are people that have used Black performers as ways to avoid difficult conversations. And I think a way to like correct that is to one, give flowers to the performers that have been overlooked. And I think to go back to those performers who I think haven't had a voice to give them platforms and opportunities to do so. So I'm trying to do like guest blogs and make sure some of the people I'm featuring are people really need to know about. Like I remember like one of the things that made me write the blog after Behoff was I was just like hearing in the grapevine, people were like, who's Peekaboo Point? Like that's insane to me. Like, what do you mean who's Peekaboo Point?
How dare you?
You know what I'm saying? And
Well,
so
also,
that's
the thing is
like,
also the person who won. Like that's the other thing too is that I
yeah,
don't
like, what do you mean
find
you don't know who Jim Minsky is? That's on shame on you, babe. If you're doing this professionally, I don't expect somebody that does this for fun to understand that. But if you are bopping around the country and you don't know
everyone
who that
thinks
is,
everyone thinks they're Mariah Carey.
yeah, it's
Everyone
weird.
thinks everyone thinks they are. It is the ultimate serve to say I don't know her. That's
Like,
your problem.
yeah,
I
I
know.
was really happy to see that. And I'm very inspired by them and Chola and just this idea of like people who have really done the work, you know, like in
Yeah.
whatever capacity they've done, they've stuck through it. They've stuck through the bullshit. They stuck through the trends and the fads. And like
Yeah.
now I aspire to like be able to contribute in that way. Like the crown's cute, but the crown doesn't translate to money. It doesn't translate into relationships. It doesn't translate into anything of substance unless you put effort into that thing.
Right. Right. Well, there's so a couple of years ago, and not to uh well, yeah, I'm not gonna predicate this. So the Burlesque Hall of Fame recently, within the last 4 years, merged Miss Exotic World and Best Boylesque.
Hmm.
Um, kind of. It was both emerging and yet a whole new beast
Hmm.
because Best Boylesque, depending on who you asked, was meant to be a companion piece to Miss Exotic World because Miss Exotic World was exclusively, well, it was sort of unofficially cis femme. If you knew, you knew.
Hmm.
But for the largest part, you had to present in a specific way. And
Hmm.
Best Boylesque, you just had to present whatever masculine looked. Um, there's a lot of things I would call Tigger masculine is not necessarily high on that list.
Hmm.
And and they're a dear friend, but he was one of the first people who sort of I readjusted my feeling on the word faggot actually. Because he was so like that was his thing, like that's his thing. And then you had someone like Lou Henry Hoover, who is a drag king, and is not does not make a trans identity part of that component. So it's a costume at that point. It's a presentation. It's an appearance. And there was some discussion
Oh, I
about
was there for that. I
the
think that's when I was
merging.
first coming in. So I read all the tea, honey.
It was a big deal. And this was so when you said you haven't been watching as long as I have, guess what? It's only been like 5, 6 years. I lived
Okay.
on the East Coast, and
Okay.
the Burlesque Hall of Fame was sort of out of my wheelhouse for the longest time. I remember when Lou Henry Hoover won because I had met him. I remember meeting Mr. Gorgeous and knowing his story. I knew Tigger also.
Hmm.
So a lot of these folks that were killing it on that scene, I knew. I had met some of the other ones. I was in a show that was judged by Russell Bruner. So you meet folks and you learn about who they are later or what their criteria are. I didn't have a high opinion. I didn't have much of an opinion, but it wasn't a high one, if at all, on the who won that. To me, that was somebody else's world. That was something else.
Hmm.
And then when I moved to the West Coast because of life, I was like, well, now it's only 4 hours away. So now I sort of have to. So I got
Hmm.
into the volunteer mode. It was after the pandemic. So I went to the very first one. So I was there for Lulu's win. Um, and that there was that break between Frankie and Lulu
Hmm.
because of COVID. And then I was there for Samson's win, and I've been there ever since. So when it is interesting that when it was quote merged or adjusted or what have you, that the first opportunity that a cis man or someone not woman or not feminine
Hmm.
won happens to win. Did it happen to be a brilliant entertainer? Yes, in fact, it did.
Hmm.
Um, Anyone who has criticism for Samson as an entertainer is missing the plot. Like, just
Hmm.
fully has lost it.
I mean, it was a
He's
missed opportunity, I think, for us to miss the commercial seal because Samson's one of the best spokespeople we have. I mean,
so fucking lootly.
you know what I mean? Like, I think it
Absolutely.
was just a totally missed moment. I mean, and if you're
Where
lucky,
was the
like, like we can't.
unbelievable?
But
Like,
why would the press come when everybody's like attacking? And another thing is like again, like I know that people are gonna be so and I keep going back to ballroom, but like, why can't we have OTA open to all? Like, why can't it? I also think it's quite fascinating that like aerial and these other mediums can kind of be compared to like the
mm,
striptease. Like, why can't we have a drag category? Why can't there be a variety category where you could do aerial? Like, I just
yeah,
think, with ballroom, obviously, like when I teach Vogue, like Virgin Vogue, I try to explain to people that one, this is never supposed to be learning this in a classroom. Like, this is a social dance and like something you're supposed to do when you're in the community and like you're
it's
at the
folklore.
space. But the
Yeah,
biggest thing is you have to self-identify. Do you know what I mean? You have to self-identify. Like, I cannot walk female figure. I walk women's performance. I walk women's runway. And then at the end, I can walk OTA. Just like, you know what I mean? You self-identify. If I want to identify as small boy, I can walk that. Nobody's gonna say you can't walk it. Now, will they chop you? That's different. You know, if I hop into an all-American runway, I'll probably get chopped, but no one's gonna stop me. And I think
Yeah.
this is another thing burlesque can learn. Like, let people self-identify. I
Let
don't vet
people
if people
chop.
are black or if they do burlesque. Like, I respect people's identity. Like, you say what you are, I love that. That's what you are.
Yeah.
I want to respect people. But I just think it's a missed moment. And with Sam Smith specifically, it took me a while to really understand the blowback of that because I can feel it now because we're not taken seriously on a commercial level. But Mufasa won our highest award. Mufasa. Mufasa.
Yeah.
I don't know. Can't save them
It's
all.
so well, and there was. I mean, that was a fucked up year, and I unfortunately, well, fortunately, I happenstance happened. I had some time that week when that whole thing fell apart, and people said some things that they couldn't take back.
Mhm.
Um, and the reason I felt so protective of this was because I was feeling a change. I was seeing an adjustment. And I wanted to nurture. I wanted to throw some Miracle Grow, any bits of it that I had, some orange peels into the mix if I could, because I suddenly was a part of it, and it was important to me. Now, if you had asked me a couple years earlier, I'd be like, well, it's its own thing. But there's a reason. I don't think it's a coincidence that when I went there, and it was maybe the second year that I was there, maybe the third, somebody was like, yeah, we were talking about what it was like a couple of years before, and there somebody said, everyone's so much nicer now. And I was like, well, let's take into account who's not coming anymore. Because there's
Mhm.
some people that aren't showing up anymore. And if it's nicer now that those people aren't here, I think maybe we should just consider what we were
Mm.
doing. Um, And the other thing is also is like I don't know. I struggle with my own relevancy, and I'm curious how you amp people up as a documentarian because you and I we're in the same business really. We're talking to people, we're amplifying their stories, we're putting them up there, but we're also saying you are somebody. I yes, 20 years. What makes a legend? Sometimes just being there first. What
Yeah.
what makes like you can win a marathon by chance and beat people who have trained a whole lot just because you were there. I couldn't win shit on the East Coast. I won a title on the West Coast because I had a damn good act and I was
Mhm.
against people that it edged over. But it was the year Jake Dupree canceled. That would have
Mm.
gone a very different way, I guarantee
Mhm.
you.
Mhm.
But I'll take it. I'll take
Okay.
that crown and sash. Um, and so there's a lot to sort of feel my own oats
Mhm.
basically and to sort of take my own thing. I haven't always felt appreciated, I haven't always felt wanted or part of it, and
Mm.
now it's really interesting that I am getting acknowledgments and it's
Mhm.
very cool.
Mhm.
I was bestowed Mr. Ohio Burlesque for my
Hell
my work in
yeah.
the
No, we love Ohio over here.
yeah, so I'll see you in a couple weeks, right?
Shout out
I'll
to
be
OBF. Yep. I'll be
yeah.
headlining Ohio with Miss Bella.
And that's very cool. I love it, and I'm not mad at it at all. Of course, of course, of course. Has it affected my bookings? No, absolutely not.
Ah!
But does doing the Silver Tusk Awards affect my bookings? I don't know. I don't think
I don't
so.
know. Maybe.
I don't think so. I mean, some people know who I am, but I worked in New York, I don't know, 5 years before Calamity Chang and Angie Pantani said, "Why aren't you submitting to New York
Mhm.
Burlesque Festival?" And I did, and I got in. Have I gotten in ever since? No, I have not,
It's okay. We all get
because
rejected.
I
I
was
recently got
writing that
rejected from
one
others
hit.
too. It's okay.
You know, but so it's sort of like it's a constant matter of humbling and celebration and such as well. And how do you work with the id, super ego, and egos of our scene when you're how do you objectively acknowledge, you know what, they did the work, they happen to be there first, oh, but this person also happens to be not a great person, human being in this regard, like is there
I
is there
definitely came across that
compartmentalization?
tension.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, there's a lot of like dominance over history information, which I didn't really feel until I got into burlesque, because in other areas, it feels like you're a minority. So it feels like, okay, well, whoever's into this weird shit, like, but I did when I first did the open call, I did it like internally, word of mouth. So I went to my mentors and then they went to people. So at first it was just like who Aquarius had connection to. And I'm now on this, like, I think lifelong discovery of like finding people across the planet. But at first it was just like my network. But then as it started to grow, I started to get critiques and the voices of like, oh, well, that person did this and that person's violent and da da da. So I kind of just had to go like, unless it's an extremely violent like a violent person, like of course, like I'm not going to pedestal anyone who has done anything violent. I have to go off of like trust of the community because I am new and I've been granted and bestowed this 15,000 square foot space that's free. And so like I was given those fixated dates. So in regard to like it happening quickly, it happened quickly because that's when it was available. And it's been hard, I'll be honest. Like I've definitely gotten an email from people being like, this isn't professional. I don't like believe in what you're doing and I'm not contributing, from historians, Black historians. And it's been like I definitely like went into a depressive episode about it because I was like, how could you not set aside our personal like differences for like the mission?
I see.
So I'm always checking my ego because like, I have to reflect that I'm just like looking at a projection. So I'm always like, okay, hold on. This is not about me because I just got here. This is more about like I would like I don't think we're ever going to get the opportunity. Hopefully, we won't have the opportunity of a pandemic again or anytime soon. I think that was like a once in a lifetime thing, hopefully. And in that case, I don't think I would have ever been even talking to you if I didn't have that time to research and educate myself. So my thought process is like, I need to help all the other people who did this before me and the people who are currently doing it move culture to more of a place of inquiry as opposed to like, I want the fame or I want the money, but like I have an understanding of like the history. And some people just don't think I'm a historian. I don't have the background and I can't do anything about that. There are several people in the exhibit I don't have personal connection to. I don't think they have nice things to say about me either, even though they don't know me, but they're still in the museum because it's not.
What could they possibly say?
I just think, people think I'm really competitive, but again, like, I shared my story earlier. I think if you understood like my background, like the immigrant parents, like the pleasure, like if you understood that, you'd get why I move with urgency. I can't compete with anyone but myself, but I know for a fact that this is history that needs to be in the Smithsonian. Like you have to be in the Smithsonian. From how I'm being mentored, what makes the difference between this being like a paper and it being something that's in a museum is the story. And people who've done this art form or have done art in general have always moved the culture. I think because it's more accessible, we devalue that idea, but the reality is like 20 years doing anything is an accomplishment, let alone, again, I look at you as like a press outlet, and so we should be amplifying what you're doing. I'd love to sponsor, by the way. I whatever coins I got, I would like to sponsor, and I would like to
I'll send you my deck.
Yes, send it to me, and I'll send it to any rich people I know.
Thank you.
Because I think the personal politics just always, like I was saying earlier, like get like muddy the waters. And I haven't, it's only been a few. Like there was definitely an active slandering campaign that occurred, people emailing BHOF saying I shouldn't do the project. And I honestly, hold on to your hats. I think it's post-traumatic slave syndrome, but that's a whole nother conversation. So I can't imagine why you'd be against Black performers who've been, by and large ignored by the institution, why we can't at least rally behind, okay, the institution's trying to reopen, they're trying to right the wrongs, and people have privilege and access and resources to push this to the light. So I'm very stern on like either you believe in the mission or if you don't, I politely respect that, but like I don't have time to like kiki about anything else.
Yeah. There's we're sort of like socialism with tipping as burlesquers. Like we're sort of there's a big mutual aid aspect to the fact where we do share GoFundMe's for medical stuff and we do share stuff where like I got accepted into this. Can you help me get gas money? But there is that level. And the funny thing is there's always been that level, but it's looked down upon in our circles because burlesque is sort of lower tier than say like the Actors Fund
Right, right.
or something like that.
Or any type of
Um,
fund that like if it's for business entrepreneurs or startups or whatever.
yeah.
I mean, they
And
have
I
venture
mean,
cap. They're asking for money 24/7. No one says anything to them.
you mentioned the Smithsonian, and that's getting press right now because of its involvement. It's using RuPaul and Drag Race in its
Hmm.
exhibits, and Nancy Mace has to
Hmm.
make something go on. The arbiter
Hmm.
of femininity and anti-DEI. God, what an asshole!
Hmm.
God, what an asshole!
And
It was.
The Kennedy Center and the Smithsonian, like those were like integral to my upbringings. Like I was
Mm,
fortunate enough to like be able to get on the metro, go to the Smithsonian, and even with the Kennedy Center, like some of my first teaching jobs were there. One of the biggest workshops I ever did was a Vogue workshop there with my ballroom dad, Marquise Clanton, and you don't know what you have till it's gone, you know? So it was definitely something I took for granted. But like I said, like this is like American history. It's not just the fact that the art form, like I said, we're living it. So I just think mentally we cannot process what we're doing because we're in it. But I
mm,
think 50, 100 years from now, people will be reading back in awe that during this political climate, even though, yes, we can, like we were talking about earlier, like this dichotomy of like, yes, like
mhm,
we have access to things and we should be grateful, but also people are also losing their rights and dying every day, and people are still pushing past those problems and expressing themselves and creating joy for people. And I just
mhm,
think we're not getting enough credit. And I think our confidence as a collective needs to go up because I think what we do is important and it's special. It's very similar to education. Like I think teachers are a little bit more resilient. Even like teachers know they're not being paid well, but they're so focused on like this is not about me, and so
yeah,
it's easier to rally and again unionize or fight for better pay or better work conditions. I think with here again, there's so much tied to the emotion and like the art being an expression of the emotion. It makes things quite complex when we start talking about other things.
certainly. And we do have some. We do have a couple like Tura Satana had a bit of has started to rise a little bit in
Hmm.
public optics. Josephine Baker is obviously one of those
Hmm.
individuals that has. We know like there are people like, oh, I know the name, and maybe they even know like the quintessential
Hmm.
photo of her
Uh-huh.
in the skirt. But invariably, like the press is like, and she was a spy.
Yeah,
We actually,
and it's like
but there's other stuff too.
it's other
But
stuff
yeah,
too, like why do we focus on her banana skirt when like it was like given to her to like be a jungle monkey? Or one thing I'm researching about her right now is like what is the difference, like what is similar between her, Grace Jones, Eartha Kitt, is they owned zero IP. So like when Josephine lost her chateau, beyond the fact that like 12 kids is a lot of kids, she did not own that. And had she was trying to turn it into a museum and she was trying to do the tours, but I don't think that she had the access to the business acumen you need to have those white paper protections. And the same thing with Eartha Kitt and Grace Jones and a lot of artists now, they're losing their rights and their autonomy to monetize their artwork because they don't have this like white line paperwork.
hmm.
And so
And
I'm
we've
trying to,
we've learned it almost took someone like Taylor Swift, ironically
yeah, to
bringing us full
understand.
circle, to understand that when it came to the Taylor's version aspect of a lot of things, that if arguably one of the top five most famous women in the world
Hmm.
is doing this and is doing it in a very specific fashion and way, and you can argue
Yeah.
the you can argue the situation accordingly.
Hmm.
Um, but if someone with that much privilege is still
Hmm.
feeling the weight of it,
Hmm.
it it should be a success story that she owns her masters again.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, for a lot of us, we sort of roll our eyes.
Yeah, I have a lot of
But
critique from her, but I am inspired by that like dedication to like get those back.
yeah,
And I think because we are in a performance art that's like hard to monetize, I think that's why it's like important that we open the conversation up to people who do a variety of things and might not do it full time. Like when I travel, I see a lot of the like burlesque ecosystems are functioning off people going to the academies, are
mhm,
functioning off of audience members like funding the art. So I mean, I see like there's remnants, but again, like you said, most people that ask me what burlesque is or what I do, they don't know what it is. And I
yeah,
notice particularly with, femme presenting individuals, it's often like confusion, almost a little distaste. but like trying to hide the distaste of like, that's your job. Like, yeah, that's my job.
Yeah.
They even
Well,
look at me weirder when I give them the background or politics. Like,
yeah.
like my high school, like people from my old life are starting to find me, and I think it's like extremely jarring for them to see my body like tits online. So oftentimes they're like, "What happened to you?" Like I have some type of disease, and it's like nothing.
Right.
I actually feel a lot happier
Yeah.
than when I was
What
like
happened in your childhood that you're
losing
finally
my role in
processing?
the office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's so. Uh, let's talk a little bit if you're cool going on because
Yeah.
I'm loving this
Oh no, I'm great. Yeah.
this salon basically.
Yes.
Um, and I have seen. Oh, hang on, as I drop my microphone because I'm so excited. I've seen some discussion. And so folks, when I refer to sort of again like these sort of these things that we see online, I am very much aware that since so much of there's no press, we're not getting we may well on occasion we'll get mainstream press, but mostly what I'm talking about is like social media posts or
Mhm.
Instagram lives or things like that. And if you know, you know, and if you don't, you don't.
Right.
But I've seen some discussion about the cultural appropriation, for lack of a better expression, because that's the phrase actually I've seen for it, of the showgirl, of the show person. And I
Mhm.
find that to be a complicated matter
Mhm.
about people who use the showgirl aesthetic or use the burlesque world as a costume. Ironically, it is a costume. When we do it too.
Mhm.
Because what does it mean to be a burlesque performer? When you see folks like uh, Jennifer Lopez or Tiana Taylor or Cardi B, even at one point she got a lot of discussion in our circles
Mhm.
regarding when Cleopatra and Cheese Louise did her
Mhm.
auditions. Um, is burlesque something that can be culturally appropriated?
I think yes.
Okay.
I think everybody's using the aesthetic correctly, but people in burlesque.
Shit.
I do. I think we're missing it. I think it's a costume to everybody, but for us, it's a lifestyle. And I think we need better PR training. We need better communication to explain the difference between a Halloween costume and the lived experience of the performance artist, the striptease artist, however you want to identify. Again, I'm using showgirl as satirical. Showgirl
Yeah.
to many people back in the day was 5'9", white, thin, chorus line model. I'm not that. I'm not that.
Mhm.
But
But also probably going bush out too. Like
you feel me?
there were
Topless,
different
no
rules.
pasties.
Yeah,
Like
different world.
let's really get into this. That's not what we're talking about. We're
Yeah.
talking about J Lo, who I just saw a clip of her. Love her soul, and I love J Lo, but J Lo looks a hot mess. And people would say to me, like I saw, like I had spoken out about J Lo a few times, and so I would see like responses where people would be like, "I don't see the problem. I think she looks great." I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is she could have hired a burlesque artist to help her not look a mess. And only if you have a technically trained eye can you identify she looks a mess. I don't. It's irrelevant that the average person. She's famous. They just want to see J Lo, so everybody's with their phone and wants to see her. She's tripping over her garment. She doesn't know what's going on. Same thing with Summer Walker. She doesn't know what's going on. I mean, what would $1,500 kill you to hire a Pearl Noir, a Dirty
In
Martini.
Vegas,
What
you're
would kill you?
surrounded
Raquel
by
Reed. What would
choreographers.
kill you? Michelle Amore. What would it do? How awful would it be for you to actually go to somebody who has this expertise, but particularly people who have withstood time, the test of time, and then be like, hey, can you help me? And I love Dita, but Taylor being like, I'm gonna go to Dita. And, okay, great. But we have like so many other people. I think that's the other part of the exhibit. Is like we have so many other people that we could be speaking to. And the
Well, that
idea
also
for
speaks to
me,
her white feminism as well, about what
of
Dita
course, I
represents
mean,
to
I just
her.
saw a clip of her
Yeah.
like saying like she has nothing bad to say about Taylor Swift. So I was like, I mean, that was a choice. That was a choice,
She
girl.
was
But
she was also at Marilyn's birthday party. I'm just saying.
okay, so we all have our thing, but
We
I
all
think
have
when
our
it comes to
things.
the commercial thing, like I definitely have dreams of like having a PR firm just like full of weird ass entertainers that go mainstream because I see it happening and I really do value a lot of these drag artists. I mean, even with King of Drag, like even though it got canceled, like I just headlined Toronto Pride and like seeing Molasses and like all these people, like that was not happening at the rate that it was a few years ago. So it will happen incrementally. But for whatever reason, I feel like because drag has the commercial success, when a celebrity wants to dabble,
Mm.
there are more options than RuPaul now, right? So like there are
There's
other
a lot of
people.
season one of things. There's a lot of season
Yeah,
one of
you know what
things.
I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't know if the girls is calling Shangela and them still, but I feel as though with burlesque, there's this repulsion to ask burlesque professionals for expertise because they want to be the star.
Mm.
They're the showgirl. They are
Mm.
embodying that. Another controversial take I have that people might push back on is I actually think a lot of them are in shame and don't want to take their clothes off, so they're going to parody these motions to distract from the fact that actually they might be able to sell out a crowd. They might have 50 million followers, but actually showing their stretch marks unedited live might actually be a little harder than people want to say. And people love to demean and say, all we do is take our clothes off. You do it. I look at people all the time in the audience. You get up here and do it.
Yeah.
You come,
Without
you
without your nude
rolls.
mesh.
Yeah,
Without your
look
nude
at my
mesh.
scars. Look at my rolls. Look at my pubic hair. Look at me being a human. And as AI intensifies more, I do think burlesque will be the antithesis of this because I think people will crave just seeing a real body, no matter what it looks like. Just like, can I see a human being that's not a plastic sex doll?
Mm. Yeah,
I
we're
don't
the
know.
character actors
But you know what I
of
mean?
showbiz, you know?
Like I really think when I first started, I was like too serious about burlesque and like I'm gonna be this glam Barbie. And it's like, no, it is about the satire. It is about the fact that it's a joke. It's supposed to be campy. And you can have versions of the camp. But I think this idea of like an adult, specifically an adult human being allowed to play with their body on display
Yeah.
is much harder for people to authentically do live. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of these mainstream artists wear the costume, but it always dies. Like Tiana Taylor, I've been trying to do my best. I have correspondence now. Okay. Shout out to Andy Rose and Edie Eve and Bellison and all the people that send me like every time we see hashtag everybody wants to be a showgirl. It's interesting because I use it as the name of the exhibit, but as a hashtag, it's kind of like a symbol of somebody who is cosplaying in the
Yeah.
costume. So Tiana Taylor had a party. It always lasts a second. Like Victoria Monet, we have a spread, but I see now she came out with the ballroom yesterday. So it's like the burlesque never works because the scene never gives them the cosign. So they move on. And then they might come back to the costume in a few years. But to me, I actually think JLo's doing the burlesque because she's trying to prove to her peers she has talent. And I think in order for you to show you have talent, you got to sing, dance, act, and be entertaining live. And so she's in Vegas trying to save, get the last pesos. But I also think she wants respect because there's, Ashanti writing for her all those years. And JLo's one of my inspirations. So let's not get it twisted. Like that's who I grew up watching along with Beyonce and Mariah Carey and all these divas. And I loved her because I always knew she couldn't really act or sing, but she could dance.
Hey, I'm a Madonna fan. I'm not going to argue.
But
Absolutely.
same thing. You saw Miss Thing at the World Cup. She's gonna do what she always give, which is give a two-step, and that's it.
So that's all she needs to do right now. And again, these are people of a certain age, and women are very frequently, particularly when they're still sexual beings, are not allowed to age. Cher, Dolly Parton, a lot of other of this higher echelon, largely queer, but also sort of ecumenical sort of behavior. we may hear some commentary on their face structure and what they do.
Mhm.
They are not nearly held to the same degree as
No.
the sexy girls
Yeah.
because their femininity, their sexuality is not necessarily tied to skin showing.
Hmm.
And the fact that these women have audacity to show their skin at this age, you can't do an article about any of them without having comma age next to it.
Right. But can you
Um,
imagine how powerful it would be if they actually did striptease? I just feel like that would be like, I just feel like everybody's missing the mark. Like, just figure it out. Why
well, I
hasn't
think
anybody been like, you know what? Let me, because there's some people I feel like we could go after, like that would lead the charge for a little bit. Like maybe Meg the Stallion, but she didn't last on Broadway that long. Like maybe like
she burned out. It was a bad year for her.
she burned
Yeah.
out. There's a lot going on. You know, I see Sabrina Carpenter, but I think these teams, because I try to talk clearly about these when I'm talking about these celebrities like J Lo or Sabrina Carpenter, I'm talking about their teams.
Inc.
Them as individuals, I know if you
J-Lo
sit
Inc.
down with
Yeah.
them and we explain to them the history of this, they'd be floored. And they might know about the history of it, but I think their teams, aka to be specific, the stylists, the managers, and the choreographers, oftentimes do steal. They oftentimes are on Instagram and Pinterest looking at the person with 2,000 followers or listening to your podcast, but not ever liking and engaging with you. But they're listening and they're watching because they always want art closest to the street. It's just, I've been like having an obsession around like the story of Basquiat when I first found Basquiat in my 20s, and now like I'm like really going into in deep
Yeah.
his life, and just like the value of his art in death was because they were like writing on him doing this primitive art. Like that was the premise of valuing the art. It's like here's this primate man doing this avant-garde art and it's from the streets, guys. So to me, these teams know where the true innovation comes from. That's why in my mind, I mean, Paris Fashion Week is whatever. Go to a ball, go to the latex ball. You're seeing people use tape and stapling at manu at better construction than what's going on overseas, where that's those are the fashion capitals of the world. But we all know like that starving artist thing, like when you're constrained with resources. I've really ever since I was like, I'm not gonna buy things on Amazon, I think my costuming game has stepped up because I gotta use a shit in my house. I don't have money. I can say as a burlesque queen that's a full-time like headliner, like I don't have money to pay a designer right now. I don't. I have to make it. Kudos to the girls that can buy the Manouche. Like I'm definitely jelly. I'm not in that position. So I feel like my art is getting better as my resources are constrained. I think it's the same thing in Hollywood. I think they know where to get the ideas and the innovation, but when it comes to the execution, we got to leave that part out because again, it goes back to the working class. Can't talk about the people we're expecting to steal from for free and work for free and not be union.
Will not be on novelty.
Yeah.
Because once you take out the novelty, because you mentioned Basquiat and you mentioned like this sort of outsider art mentality and it being novelty and it being current, and once you remove the novelty of it and you actually have to start making it part of the everyday discussion, every part of the culture, part of,
Sexy.
compensating people,
Mm-hmm.
acknowledgement. And that's the one thing about, so specifically, folks, what we're referring to with the Jennifer Lopez is there's this footage that's going around. I believe she's still in Vegas
She's still tripping over the Ostrich fans, honey.
and she's doing it to Let Me Entertain You
Yes.
from Gypsy. And the funny thing, this is what tells me there are some artists out there where I question their understanding of irony, their understanding of
If she meant to do it,
intellectualism.
fine.
That's the thing, because that song,
If she meant to be campy, I'm
the
not
idea
upset.
of using Let Me Entertain You, which is a perversion, it's not even a subversion, it's a perversion of a little kid song in Act One
You know what
of
I mean?
that show. You have to know that. Because you can do that song straight. I've seen Anne Margaret do it, and you know it.
Hmm.
You hit it. You know it. You know what you do. We miss the variety show. I love the days of seeing someone like Raquel Welch or Anne Margaret or Eartha or any of these other folks doing like a half hour to an hour variety show where they could bring in shit like striptease
Hmm.
or cabaret or things like that. We don't have that. The Barbara Streisand era, we don't
Yeah.
have that.
Yeah.
What a
It could come back. I feel like if I ever did a one woman show, those are my inspirations. Like,
absolutely
yeah,
genius,
yeah.
genius. But the fact that we
We have
have like,
Josephine. Oh my God, in Orlando. I'm
oh
from
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm
That's
talking
still
about? Push.
that's still so niche. Still
Yeah.
so niche.
Hmm.
Still so niche. And you have like your I remember like that was the track that a lot of stars did, and then they get the TV gig where they would do it at the same time. But like your Cher and your Mama Cass, like you
Hmm.
would do like these residencies, and then you do the film version of TV film version of it. Judy Garland, what a your Carol Burnett's, like what a genius era. Um, and if you understand where you're coming from and why you're using this material, the general Vegas goer who doesn't know Gypsy and is seeing this doesn't understand the potential layers
You know?
behind using something like that. And I don't think Jennifer Lopez is given it in
I
that
mean, I saw
regard
Diva at
too.
her birthday. I don't know if she maybe didn't say anything to her. Maybe she's working with her. I don't know. But I think that's a great example of a choreographer, a creative director being like, oh my God, girl, have you seen this movie? You should do this act. And it's like, if she meant to trip over the dress, I think that's cute. I don't think that's
You
what
got to
she
lean
intended
into it
to do.
then.
I don't
You
think
got
she
to
intended to
lean
do that.
in.
And from my understanding from her interviews, she's worked extremely hard with her vocal coach to be able to sing live in this
Yeah.
specific show. So I think she's given us all she got.
Yeah.
And I think she's doing great. I mean,
It's too fast
considering
too.
like
You got to
you said,
slow down. A lot of those
yeah,
mistakes
slow
are because
down.
it's so
The
fast.
throwing, I mean, even the construction of the garments. I mean, I will never forget Misty. One day I was like, Misty, instead of Misty Rose, I was like, instead of me doing snaps, I could just use Velcro. She was like, bitch, are you crazy? Like, you're gonna have this long mermaid dress, like, and I saw JLo do that, and I just thought, oh my gosh, like, down to the costume design. This is not
Yeah.
informed decision making, and that's what pisses me off. It's not so much that they're taking the aesthetic. There's no taking. If somebody wears their hair in cornrows, I personally don't care. I think it's respect. I think it's how you got it done. I think it's where you got it done. Did you compensate a black or indigenous person? Are you reading the room? I didn't come up with this. This ain't my hair. Who am I to tell you
No,
you can't wear the hair?
this Donna Summer fantasy is not your. No,
I know, right? I'm going into my 70s era. But you know what
it's
I mean?
so
Like,
Love Trilogy. I don't know if you're familiar. It's so.
but I mean, I don't think it could be like, I mean, I do believe in appropriation, by the way. I'm not, I want to clarify that. I believe in
Oh yeah,
appropriation, but in regard to burlesque, I don't think it's like owned by a population or a group of people. I just think it's on us to hold them accountable lovingly. So that's why I'm like, when like Taylor came out with Life of a Showgirl, I said, I hope you're calling all these people because I don't what life and I've read all the discourse, right? Like, okay, but a showgirl is an entertainer like Cher, and she's not necessarily saying she is aligning with the working class, she's just giving her example. That's fine. But then why does it hurt you to say this is where it comes from? I can only assume this is a very calculated strategic decision to omit this information from the record because it keeps happening over and over. Same thing with Sabrina Carpenter. What's going on? I see elements of burlesque. I can't even get a cute little 2-minute history lesson on your Instagram. I mean, that's why I shouted out Summer Walker,
I
because
see.
even though she didn't do the best like advocacy for burlesque, she wrote in the little caption, her people did right, and I appreciate black burlesque. I'll take it. I gotta the bars beneath hell. So
Yeah,
anybody that's going to use I think even using the word burlesque is taboo to a lot of these teams because again, you have to go back to the origin of the word. It's satire, it's a play off gender, it's a play off sexuality. And is that the message that team is trying to push on you? Or are they just trying to push on you blanket sexuality by my
in a
album?
corset. Yeah,
In a corset.
a
Seeing
bustier.
Summer Walker
Yeah,
take the gloves off, again, the audience doesn't know what's going on. They think she looks fabulous. I'm reading the comments. They think she looks amazing. I think she looks ridiculous. I wouldn't know how a person's supposed to shoot a bow and arrow, but I'm sure people who dedicated their entire life to it understand the technique.
absolutely. And you see criticism of that all the time, and that's acceptable for folks
And
on
like the
YouTube
people at the
to say
Olympics
you
that do the
chop off your
shuffling
nose.
thing, they're like
Yeah,
talking about, you know what I'm saying? Like those are much more niche things that I would argue they get paid less than us in regard to their art form or their participatory exercise. But again, I think as a group, we need to start saying like, hey babe, maybe you could call Femme Appeal if you like want to do this like stripping Star Wars show or like
yeah.
whatever. I don't think anyone owns anything. I just think if we were more united on a communications front, like, hey, we have good people, we have different type of people, and these people are experts, whatever we deem that is as a group, I think
Yeah.
more of Hollywood, more commercial lanes would sit and listen. I do think one of us needs, like, I'm doing my best, like, honestly, to get signed by an agency as a burlesque performer, not a model. I'm signed as a model. And I went to my modeling agent and she was like, babe, good luck. And I want to prove I want to prove it. Like I think they need to see us like what is a burlesque artist? Somebody who primarily entertains through the means of striptease. I don't care how it's done. I don't care the style, the body, the person, the age. I think one because now, like for example, with actors, some of the actors getting the most work, at least in my agency, the people getting the most work right now are actually 50 plus. They're getting a lot of brand deals. There are you can market to any people. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I do think
Well, I think that's partially also 90s nostalgia because the
yeah,
people that we grew up with are now older
yeah.
and that we're leaning into. Once you start realizing, oh shit,
Just everything's a
this guy
flashback.
from Saved by the Bell is on AARP magazine, you adjust it. And then anybody above that, uh your 80s actors or your 70s actors who are still with us, um, that are having renaissances. Like we had
Hmm.
this whole thing about had Demi Moore's comeback because of the
Hmm.
substance. When she was never a beloved actress in the 90s.
Right, right.
She was considered a step above Red Shoe Diaries
Well,
when it
also,
came
I'm like,
to
are you hearing this thing about Anne Hathaway? Like how like the internet hated her, which I didn't know because I've always been an Anne Hathaway fan. But now the Odyssey is
there
like
was
turning
there
on
was a
me.
there was a post Les
What
Miserables,
has Anne Hathaway done to
absolutely
anybody?
nothing actually, and actually she's a tremendous advocate. But sometimes, even if you're thin and white, if you get mouthy,
Right.
you you still get stuff. Um, she still had like the moment with Matt Lauer where he talked about her upskirt
Right.
shot. Like
Right.
she
Right. Right.
still had to deal with talking about dressing up as Catwoman, the whole
Hmm.
Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow thing too.
Hmm.
All
Hmm.
of that. It's all there.
We're
And
human.
so yeah. Will we give that much grace to, other intersections?
Yeah, like
I don't know.
Lupita, not Lupita. Who did
Oh,
Cynthia
well, yeah,
Ari though? I feel like watching like how she was treated like in the press.
yeah,
Um, so
yeah.
I don't know like what I don't know where it's gonna go, but I do think we need representation as who we are though. Not as singers. We can do other mediums, but I think we need to be signed to talent agencies as burlesque entertainers, as burlesque podcasters, as like as the art form, because right now it's like you sing or you dance or
Hmm.
you act.
I'm
And
kind
it's
of
like
surprised there isn't a former burlesquer or at least a burlesque semi-retired who hasn't started that.
I think for example, I look at people like on tour with Dita, like Zelia Rose. I know like for a lot of the people that got booked for Dita's show are dance commercial, like they're commercially signed as
But is Dita
dancers.
Union? Is she part of I don't even know if she's
I
SAG.
don't
I don't.
I from what I don't know. I'm not gonna speak on that. But I don't think the dancers are all getting union rates. A lot of union rate
Oh,
is
there was some
I think
discussion
for
about
a
that in
show like
newsletter.
on set is like $800, so I don't know.
It's it is a privilege to be part of a union too.
Of course. I mean,
The dues. I'm a big fan of Delta Work, who has a fabulous talk show and is discussed about when she was the wig designer and wig facilitator for RuPaul, about all of these steps that they
mm,
wanted her to take when Ru did Netflix, and Delta's like, I really can't agree
mhm,
to that. Like I can't do that, and then got punted.
fully.
Two-time Emmy winner,
Didn't
punted
even see her
because
in
they
the
didn't play
hospital,
the
honey.
game.
Didn't even
Yeah.
go to hospital. We can't even see her in the hospital.
So much going in there. So yeah, I think there's I don't know, like
I
because
think we
there's
gotta
a
let like I think it has to be the issue around the finding the next icons. I think that's like high priority. I think high priority is like showcasing the history, and I think also like us collectively amplifying each other's platforms must occur because we have enough. Just even within like the drama we've been talking about online, if all of that was channeled sometimes in one general direction, I think we
yeah.
get a lot more done. I do think it's a confidence thing. I think there's a lack of agency we sometimes pick up because the monetary balance isn't there. So, and it's just kind of like you don't feel like your work's valuable because you're not being paid. But in reality, our work is extremely valuable. Like we know this, but honestly and truly, I think it is very powerful. But we're oftentimes, people are either burnt out. Like I know even from advocacy, like the elders are like, I'm tired. So next gen pick it up, So I feel like at the age I'm at right now, I feel this call to like grow up quickly. I do identify with this like millennial experience of like maturing late, and I've had conversations with performers about like burlesque is kind of like this like adult kid playground, and
Arrested
maybe a
Development
lot,
heavy.
yeah, a lot of us have kind of taken a while to get on the train, and everybody's gonna like mature at their own age, but I do feel this like urgency to explain to the world what's already been there. Like it's not new. It's not, it's always withstood. I think what's new is this is the first time in history we can amplify it. Like the microphone's on, like we have access to the internet. We have access to connect with each other like this, where our ancestors didn't have that opportunity.
Right.
So, a lot of this community building does have to happen online. And I am committed to, somebody could call me the most ugly bald-headed bitch and I will not say anything about them negatively online, because I think the digital footprint is going to be so gross later in life. And I've said this to people that like I've had serious debate with, like, do you want when you die for people to like read all your Facebook posts? And like that's what the majority, like, who cares really? But can we also maybe occupy this real estate, this digital real estate, with more than just our opinions? Like, is there a way for us to preserve history? Is there a way for us to shout each other out, like your awards? Like I know people who like cried when they saw they won your award, like that helped boost their confidence. Or I know people I've personally have worked with that have like, I've seen them blossom from like this acknowledgement, any form of acknowledgement really.
Yeah.
So I think we could be using the internet for more. I do believe people can express themselves. People told me like, well, Chris, I use my Facebook as my diary. I'm like, that's great. I think if you want to get work, that's a little muddy, because at a typical job, if you talk shit about your coworker, you probably don't have a job. But here, again, no union.
You don't
no
write the
industry.
memoir first. You do the shit and then you write your memoir.
Yeah, then you talk shit in the book. But
Yes,
like,
exactly.
can we have some intellectual property?
Mm.
Meta owns that. So in my mind, talk the shit, but like, can you do it in a paid newsletter? Create accessibility for people to have access to you. Like, please, 5, 10
I
years
gotta
from
find out what the hell. I gotta learn Substack. That's my.
we're gonna talk offline, because I really do feel like, I mean, one thing I am really good at is like cleaning up and optimizing people's profiles so they are open to more people. So we could talk about that. But I think at the end of the day, it feels overwhelming, but this is like the best time, because a lot of these platforms are new. So like Substack just started, like these things just started. I think it's easy to like get in the mundane of like, I need to get it all, but like you did the brunt work of like I said, being committed. And Danielle Polanco is a like famous heels teacher. She taught Beyonce to dance in heels, her and Aisha Francis. And they oftentimes, them two and Giannis Marshall, very famous heels teachers, they're going on these rants online about why they're only booking legends now, about how the new generation is pompous, they're not answering their emails, they're not on time, they're rude, they're running their mouth online. And for whatever reason, them going to a 20-year veteran, not only is it easier to work with them, they're more reliable. And so they're kind of having these public talks of word to the wise. You better hope the legends die soon, because that's who's getting the work until the next generation understands that Danielle says all the time in her classes, like, you're not competing against your peers, you're competing against Catherine Dunham, because the technique the artist development has just been thrown out the window because of the internet. So now you just have to look good. You just have to look like you're working. You just have to like look like you have it. And then we can figure out if you really suck later, as opposed to back in the day, like, you had to go to a Janet Jackson cattle call with 3,000 people and you had to bust your ass to get those 8 spots. It's not like that anymore. I mean, I have had to like sit with the guilt of feeling like I get things that like my mentors and people before me have never had access to. And I've been extremely fortunate that none of my mentors have penalized me for the blessings I've gotten, but I really do feel like a lot of them like walked because I could run. And I think it's all just about acknowledging it. I don't think
Wasn't that the point though? Wasn't
just
that
acknowledge
wasn't
it.
that
Just
supposed to
say,
be? Yeah.
that's why I said, hey, you guys love my fans. Like, Pearl taught me that. Between Pearl and Quan, like, that was the direct like information given to me, and by the grace of God, when she sees me do that back bend, she's cheering for me and she's not tearing me
Right.
down. I
Right.
know everybody feels away about all different type of people, but I have to say, like, as a newer performer, I've had the opportunity a lot of people haven't had, which is opportunity to mentorship. I did seek out Egypt. I did seek out Pearl. I did seek out Lulu La Duchess to coach me in Poison Ivory. Like, I looked at what I liked, and when I had money, I saved up and I booked a private. But I felt the need to do that because I was coming from a world where, like, that's where the wisdom usually is. Not exclusively, but like I think
That
I've
you had
been able
access
to be
to.
successful because I had access to women who were like, don't do that, don't do that. You
Yeah.
know, I had access to multiple Miss Exotic Worlds telling me, hey, even if you win this, you better have a plan. Instead of me kind of like being naive and thinking like, this is the prize. This is the top of it, you know. I value those times even now with Jezebel Thunder, Foxy Lexi, when we're working together and they're just sharing information. I don't think though their generation got that. You know, Jezebel, you know, I think a lot of them, they were isolated, or even you might have felt isolated. And now because of the internet, I have so many people that I can talk to and connect with that are having a similar experience that I
Mhm.
feel like previous generations did not have access to that. So I think just
Well,
acknowledging that you have the privilege and access doesn't mean like,
and Michelle Lemore brought this up a little bit in a recent post as well about how there aren't any real duties assigned to a Miss Exotic World. You win it and then that's it. There's no like
yeah, it needs to
necessarily,
give Miss America. Yeah, they need to be
yeah,
out and about
there's no
promoting.
relationship per se. And
Mhm.
therefore you can't ask of them and they can't ask of you. So there's still something of a preservation there. But if there's and I talked a little bit about to this with Jezebel and even to Honeybee, because I didn't want it to indicate. I mean, we started actually talking about taking opportunities and realizing when the cultural shift it starts to include other bodies and other, skin tones to be there, be present, and take advantage of it, be available for it. I think Burlesque Inc. at large, Burlesque the world, we are easier at giving crowns to Black women than we are supporting them day to day.
Oh,
And that doesn't mean that they don't deserve those crowns. It's that it's almost
a lie.
reparations in advance.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, it's like, hey, let's get this shit over with so they can leave me the
Yeah.
fuck alone.
And it doesn't mean they weren't great because they were
And by the
all
way,
fucking
I can
genius.
say behind closed doors, I've had things to say about this. I haven't
Mm.
said them publicly, but I have a lot to say about this. I think the virtue signaling is disgusting. I think it doesn't help Black people. We know so many Black performers who are incredible.
Mm.
And yes, it's not a question of if they earned that, but it's a matter of did the person setting this up have integrity when they did this? Because we can usually tell by, like you said, the support that comes afterward. And that's not an isolated experience to a Black person in burlesque, but this idea of let me make it look like
Yeah.
everything's good.
Yeah.
But
And
if
these are
I'm
unchecked
seeing
biases
something in the
sometimes. They're not
crowd,
always on purpose. It's not always on purpose.
no, 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 no. I think a
But
lot of it, to be honest with you, I think most of it is subconscious. I
yeah.
do. I think most of it is subconscious. I don't, we do have like the Russell Brunners and the Trixies every now and again, but for the most part, 95%, I do think it's subconscious and it's learned behavior
Hmm.
that has become socially acceptable. It's been socially acceptable to virtue signal. It's been
Yeah.
socially acceptable to repost something but not really engage with it. It's become acceptable to, I mean, I would love to talk about this. It's a very hot topic, but there are a lot of white femme presenting performers who are feeling very upset right now because they feel like they're better than some of the other people being put in these festivals or these competitions. And, one side is like, well, forever it has been the white girl, so you should just be quiet and move over. And on the other side, it's like, but are they virtue signaling? And is this division? I see there's a division because I personally know that I'm often tokenized. So like if it's not me, I'm seeing the same three or four people. If it's not me, and if it's not them, it's Aquarius and other people. And
Yeah.
so to me, the lack of diversity and like who are the people chosen to do bigger shows and bigger gigs shows me that the internal racism is very loud. It's very much very present. Because
Well,
I think we see more variety.
Hi, I'm Jen Ponton.
And I'm Lillian Bustle.
And we're the hosts of All the Fucks,
a podcast about vulnerability.
But it's more than just that. It's nostalgia.
It's unrequited crushes.
It's the mortifying moments that make you want to crawl back inside your own belly button.
Ooh, and somehow it's sometimes about pelicans.
A pelican allegory, if you will.
Oh, I will.
So if your heart has ever felt like a skinned knee,
oh, you'll fit right in as one of our fuck buddies.
All the Fucks. A storytelling podcast wherever you listen.
I think sometimes the news factions are also very difficult because how we communicate as an industry is a lot through vague booking or even being very direct on Facebook. But invariably, someone will see something, write their own comment on it on their own page with no context, no anything, and it's 30 comments of what's going on. Or do I even want to know? Or what or something like this. And then somebody saying, well, see, that's why I don't do festivals. And then me in my head going, yeah,
and then run.
Yeah, that's why. Okay.
And like we're back to square one.
And it's sort of
but again,
like,
I think it causes this resentment. You know what I mean? Because then it's like, oh, well, the black girls are getting everything. The black people, I'm sorry. Black people are getting everything. Not necessarily, but I do think there is a lot of, let me look like I'm not racist because I might put you in this festival. I might even give you the crown, but am I going to pay $2K
it's the love bombing.
to buy you out and pay for you? And no, a lot of times.
And then you can't criticize. Because if they give you that, then you can't argue.
Shut up.
Because...
you see, there's 7 black girls in the competition. There's no racism here.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the money. I want to talk about the pesos. I want to talk about the opportunities, the stages, the I don't know about you, but for me, I've observed a lot of producers that like have made it work. I don't know if it's through sponsorships. I don't know if it's through frequency of when they do their events. But again, if you pay attention to people who appear, because I don't know, I don't see people's tax returns, they appear financially stable. What they market is very different than I think what we.
It's all the show business. It's all, oh yeah.
It's show business.
It's all, yeah.
And you know, I cried to Pearl and I'm like, why are they making me do this? She was like, shut up and be a token until you have enough power to change it. So that's what I did. I came in.
Work on those chapters for that memoir coming out too.
Yeah,
and you get that information.
I came up being weird. I did my Somali act where I was like touching myself as like this like woman, and people weren't feeling it. So, honey, I gave them the classic Black Barbie, and I feel like now I'm kind of coming back around to what I want to do. But I had to play this song and dance of like what will appease the rich white ladies, and not everybody's willing to play that game. But I would be a disservice not acknowledging that I had a partner that could help me invest in the beginning of my career. Like these are little things that I think particularly I like to share with like BIPOC, but particularly Black performers, because I think there's a lot of financial education that's intentionally withheld. And if it wasn't for some of these other people who are not Black, who have pulled me aside to be like, hey, that's not the rate. Hey, they're paying you half what they're paying me. I had a burlesque queen when I was like, hey, I was in a group chat with like 10 performers where I was like I was one of 2 people paid half what everybody else was paid. I was like, hey, I kind of need help advocating to like corporate, and Miss Exotic World told me you could file EEOC complaint. But they were not going to be advocating on my behalf. But I learned a lot from that lesson, and I learned, oh, okay, so I think me as a Black artist, I have to demystify the finances. So I don't mind when people DM me, what's your rate? I tell them if I can refer somebody, I will refer them, because I feel as though it's such a gate-kept industry, but we're always kumbaya. But it's like, no, well, actually, I feel like I just broke the ceiling, and it required a lot of people sitting me down and almost forcing me to advocate for myself. And to this day, I'm still not making some of the rates some of my peers are making. We're in the same show. I get tenure and all that. That's not what I'm discussing. I'm discussing more the difference in pay when it comes to how you present.
Right. Well, and then you look at, okay, so this person is a headliner, this person is a this, and then you're like, well, in what sense as well? Because is it name recognition? Because person number 5 over there in Boise, I'll just say, doesn't know who that person is.
Mhm.
So what are you booking? Are you booking name recognition? Because there's no
I think it's
season
friends.
19 of Drag Race that
Yeah, I
that
think
that
it's
comes underneath
friends.
it.
I think it's like, I think it's partially like, I think it's getting harder to get booked for sure. Like in
Mm,
the shows where I think, let me say shows where you're paid over $400. Let's use that metric. I
okay.
think for those shows, the expectation is either you look a certain way or you will perform at a certain level if you're not a friend.
And hopefully your backstage behavior is exquisite.
Of course. And I think, I mean, I feel like that's a little inconsistent. Like now where I still see some people, I'm like, how's that person have work? But they get the job done.
Yeah. They're
I
reliable
think,
in some capacity, yeah.
yeah, they're reliable in some way. Like, some of the divas might be divas, but honey, the divas on time, makeup is slayed, act is flawless. Sometimes that person does get booked over a person that might be super kind, super community oriented,
Yeah.
but might not have the expertise, costume expertise, or something that someone else has.
Also,
Um,
someone you think is a sweetheart, other people don't fuck with. Ooh, that's always
exactly.
fascinating
Like I'm
too.
sure there are people that are just like, I don't care for her backstage, but I do my best to like, have good energy and bring my
Yeah.
best. I was ranting on my stories this week about like giving performers advice about festival rejection and this idea of like reading the room. And for
Mm.
me, as a Black woman, it took me a while to process why I was always asked to dance or Vogue. Like I'll never get like the first time I got in Duane Park, I thought it was so cool. Like they say you couldn't get in there under 3 years. I was in there. And they were like, hey, can you Vogue? And I was like, why the fuck would I Vogue at Duane Park? But that is my typecast. So guess what? To this day at my residencies, at one of them, they're like, we love you, Aquarius, so much. Like, you cannot do a slow burn. You can't dance to slow music. Like, that's my role. Now, it took me 4 years to like be like, that's my typecast. I'm gonna spend the rest of my career breaking out of that. But I had to like have the mental like battle of like, am I gonna stand 10 toes on this or am I gonna walk away from it? And I think some people actually do. Some people get
Yeah.
sick from doing things they don't want to do. They walk away from it. But at the end of the day, like I'm being booked to like dance my ass off.
The other
And
side of typecasting is sustainability.
yeah,
Like that's
like,
yeah.
and I was telling everybody that as an adjudicator, I notice everybody sending these super sultry, slow, super empowering acts, which are great, but there's no way in hell we can have a festival of 30 of those acts. It's not feasible. I don't think
Right.
people are playing nearly enough with comedy or nerdlesque, or I just think there's so many other avenues people could go, but they're choosing to like be like, I think this is what they want. When it's like, well, I mean, it's
And
30
is
other
that who
people.
you are?
And yeah, like I don't, this is actually truly still a place where we value diversity. I don't want to see
Yeah.
9 women with the same body type. I want to see
Right.
different genders, body types. I think it's phenomenal when it's truly body diverse because it's like, wow, I have not seen this. It's stimulating for at least me, for my
Yeah.
brain, to see the differences. What people think the audience wants, I don't know. I've
Well,
seen audiences around the country and the world, and when it comes to at least United States, I think in places where burlesque is welcome, they want to see a good show, no matter who's in it.
right. And I think a lot of times a lot of these bar shows or regional shows or smaller shows and festivals, because
Mhm.
you got your diehards who come to these festivals who go every year or they also want wish fulfillment. They
Mhm.
want to be able to see what they don't think that they are capable of on that stage.
Mhm.
And sometimes, yes, that does mean someone who is thinner than they are, or is more able-bodied than they are, or is something else that they can't fulfill. But a lot of times, it's also someone who is very close to what they are doing the
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm.
Because they can't go to an opera and say, I'm going to start opera lessons tomorrow
Right.
at 45. They can't go to the ballet and say, look at that plie. I'm going to start that up at 32.
Right.
But they can go to a burlesque show and say, you know what? I want to love my body the same way.
Mhm.
Even if they're not career, even if they're
Yeah.
not career,
I think even more if
they
they're
want,
not career, like give me something to live for beyond my damn job
yeah,
and like
yeah.
meaningless entertainment.
So I think and I, as a producer, and I'm not producing right now, alas, alack, but when I was doing my residency in New York, I would book people all the time that I didn't necessarily get the act, but I'd pay attention to the audience. And if they were
Right.
responding, then I'm wrong.
You know, and I think that's like a humbling thing with producing that I learned when I started. Is like I'm paying attention to the audience. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because at this level, everybody's
And that's
good.
going to other shows and paying attention to those audiences too, because
Correct. I'm
you
always
book
sitting,
at
I
other
always
shows.
try to sit in the back. I try to sit in the back so I can have like a or up top. I
Yep.
want to see what they're responding to. And
Hmm.
I've seen so many shows just in 2026. I've seen people across the age spectrum and identity spectrum get standing ovations and truly move people. So I don't think that's the issue. I think it's the issue of like genuinely letting that push through the noise. um and it not being a performance. Like I know it's hard because we like do this campy art, but I have this conversation particularly with white producers, like stop virtue signaling. You're not doing anybody justice just letting people in so you don't look fat phobic, so you don't look racist.
Right.
What you need to do, we have an access problem and a resource problem, right? So for me, if I can benefit a performer by being like, hey, here's some resources that help me, might not help you, but might help you, I think that actually is more meaningful than giving somebody a tokenism booking, because it's like handing a fish versus teaching them the fish.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, like I've had conversations with my mentors about challenging some of their white counterparts of like, hey, instead of making me a headliner, why don't we co-produce together? That's when energy gets weird, right? Like it's cool for you to headline my show even, and the next level is like, oh, it's cool for you to headline, but like let's not mix money, shall we? Like let's not actually like be on the same byline of like we are managing
Not
together.
collaborate. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I still see that being a thing where it's like, okay, why aren't some of these powerful matchups happening? And again, it comes back to the subconscious bias. Like I can only blame it on that because why isn't it happening
Well,
more?
and also I think it's I
I don't think they might not want it to happen. I don't know. Like I
no,
do
yeah,
feel
yeah.
like a lot of producers were forced into the DEI hires. I do not think it
Mm.
was wanted. Just like when White Fragility came out, I don't think people were running to buy Robin's book.
When
I
it
think
came out, like
it was
special
like
edition.
it was like read, right, read this, and it was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I don't read this, I'm racist, so I have to read it. And then what did they learn? Not a damn thing.
Yeah.
What did that book do for me? Nothing. I cannot shame. My partner is white passing. And when we before we got engaged, I sent him to therapy. We went to couples therapy. Then I sent him to an anti-racism recovery coach because I was like, I'm not teaching you about none of this. Before we get married, you need to clean this up. Then she turned into a narcissism recovery coach. That led us to narcissism recovery. And what
Okay.
we learned in that together was that shame does not work. It works in the short term and it can work. But from a scientific perspective, shaming somebody into doing an action is not a long term solution. So if shaming worked with white people, we wouldn't be in this predicament. I think we've tried to shame people enough. I think
Yeah.
it comes from an education, like an honest
Well, and
conversation
that's
of
why people are being so bold in
yeah.
their
Because now if you look at the
rewrite.
lineups, I mean now they're blaming it to me, it's a scapegoat to blame it on Trump. It's like no, Trump's not telling you to book this.
Mm.
Nobody conservative Republicans in your business. So did you just happen to end up with all these white people in the show? And
Yeah.
again, I want to be clear. I've had conversations with producers. I don't want you to go hunt down a black person because you're in the middle of Milwaukee and there's no black people, even though there's black people in Milwaukee. That's not what I'm saying. Because I also think I've had conversations with some of my black counterparts like, hey, you can't just like put quotas on people. I think that's completely unrealistic. Like there are some places where it's not really that many Asian people are, and we talk a
Mhm.
lot, we fixate a lot on black, but another thing we're doing in the exhibit is like focusing on Asian and Latino and multiculturalism because I do think a lot of times it's like black or white, and it's like, wow, when was the last
Right.
time I seen an Indian performer?
Right.
Or like
Well, and we have so
performers.
many we have so many interracial components as well.
Yeah, we have a lot of
And
multicultural, right? We have a lot of people that are blended,
right.
and allowing
That we will then
people to.
deny part of their heritage because they resemble one more than the other,
Oh yeah, I mean,
often.
the two critiques I got the loudest were I didn't have labels in the museum, even though the exhibit, even though Beehoff's never had labels, and the Guggenheim
Labels.
doesn't have labels. Like I didn't have time to like make a label for each person's artifact. I mean, now we have like over 200 people like artifacts. I do have label. I do have historians working in Indianapolis and in Davenport. Danny has labels, but that was critique. And the second critique was that I was allowing people to be counted black that were not black to them, but these people self-identify as black. So I had a lot of biracial people uh showcased, and this pissed a lot of people off.
Yeah.
And that's personal because I said I self-identified. I told everybody self-identify. So I did not vet. I assume there's no Rachel Dolezals. If there is, let me know. But
But there might be a
didn't,
Halsey who necessarily,
like
yeah,
I get
yeah.
it, but I didn't get that vibe. But
Yeah.
people did feel inclined to make public comments about so and so is not really black, and my own blackness was also attacked. I was told I was not black because my parents are African immigrants, but like I've never been to Africa. I'm very proud of my parents' heritage, but I'm from here. I was born here, and I identify with the Black American experience. Now, my parents are not descendants of slaves per se. Yes, they
I
did not
see.
come here on a
Okay.
slave ship, but like, I mean, I shared my mother's story. I shared the story of like Somalian people enslaving themselves. Like, I'm not
Mhm.
really here to do an oppression game. I'm here
Right.
to
That sounds like
unify.
Oppression Olympics. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
here to unify over shared values. And the shared value is we both do this art form. And again,
Mm.
this is supposed to be a garden of people that are still alive, and the garden will grow beyond the black experience. But I mean, the people who questioned my blackness were black. There was no white people asking if I was black.
Well, because you just are.
You know?
White
I
people
mean, I
do,
don't know.
white people love to talk about like German versus Norwegian versus Scandinavian, but black people are just black.
You know? You know, so
We
I get it. And I
we still
understand it.
call
I get
Rihanna African American because we don't know what the hell we're doing.
right, and I get it. Like African American is like maybe people will feel more comfortable calling me African American because I'm, first generation from African immigrants. Fine, we'll have that. I can also say that because of my learnings of post traumatic slave syndrome and the experience of people who are descendants of slaves and
Mm.
and indigenous people, I do feel like I have a privilege to have more leeway to uh, call for reparations and to uplift Black American culture. So this is what I've explained to some European producers, like, Aquarius, why are you only doing Black? I'm like, babe, I'm not doing Black because I'm saying Black is superior to everyone else. I'm doing this because traditionally it wasn't a conversation. Authentically, it wasn't. Not DEI, virtue signaling, here's my Black. No, no, no. I want you to genuinely understand the contributions
Right.
of these people were erased and walked over to fit this Eurocentric standard of what this art is. It doesn't mean
Right.
your art's not valid, and eventually we'll come around to everybody around the world. We'll get there. But I wanted the conversation to start with the Black conversation because it's the conversation we avoid the most. Genuinely.
Well, a lot of times the folk like when marginalized people, all kinds of folks in the margins and hyphenates and all of these things, when we create our own spaces or we create our own celebrations or we create our own information, the person who is not part of those will invariably say, well, what about me? A
Mm-hmm.
lot of times, right? Because because most of these marginalized brackets were created because we weren't part of the
Right.
others. And then we start getting into allyship, and then we start getting into allowing spaces to have, those situations. Um, and then we get into when we get into like sexuality or we get into gender expression, those aren't always visible. When we get into
Right.
disabilities, those aren't always visible. When
Mm-hmm.
we get into race, those aren't always visible.
Mm-hmm.
And heritage and lived experiences and classism, my God, which is one
Mm-hmm.
of the largest things that I've acknowledged the diaspora of my lived experience versus somebody else's lived experience in 1993 by virtue of me living in central New Jersey, by that person living in, Omaha
Mm-hmm.
or Atlanta or just outside of Atlanta, not even the big cities. Like it's sort of like there is no monolith. And the more that
Mm-hmm.
we try to monolith, there's this, oh, I forget what it was called, but it was this really great documentary about trans representation in the media. And somebody was saying, like, we wouldn't get so persnickety, and she didn't say persnickety, about this representation if there was more. But since
Mm-hmm.
that's the only, we're going to get a little persnickety about that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I
Yes, that's such a good
appreciate
example.
I
Yeah.
appreciate the authenticity of coming from your own perspective. If you're saying, "Oh, all these multicultural acts," I remember somebody said, and this is the other problem with telephone, is that I heard somebody say that somebody heard that somebody saw,
Hmm.
that there was criticism that the B-Hop stage had a lot of multiculturalism acts and that they were so many. And I'm like, first of all, who had the nerve? Who had the gumption to feel so confident in their bones to say that out loud? What
It's also weird because I think we all know that I look at it as like a high art competition, and it's going to be all over the map for the
all
pure
over?
like
Yeah.
it. I don't think you can whittle.
Especially previous years, because now we have a lot of folks who aren't coming from overseas because of
Hmm.
America's
Hmm.
Americanism.
Yeah, and
Australia's
I think
coming.
again,
They're
like
really representing. They're really
yeah, me
representing.
navigating uh talking about people in the fringes beyond the Black American experience has been shaky. But again, like I'm still crafting the communication around that of like my
Yeah.
intention. But the biggest thing is like I do think we all have like a class like value system we can all align around.
Yeah.
And yes, I will always, like I said, call for reparations, like for Black Americans and for Indigenous people on this land, because all of us are visitors here. And I think we all need to be unified as people passionate about the art form and value the beauty in our diversity.
Mm.
I'm somebody like I learned how to runway walk like from trans women. You know what I'm saying? Like I that like to me like part of my identity has blossomed from me being able to explore my femininity.
Yeah.
So to me, like I was one of the first people to like book trans women like in burlesque shows in DC that I know of. And now I see she's booked all the time, but also like you were saying, like, but are we seeing the same representation because there's so little, right? Am I only
Yeah.
going to see the same performer because we don't have authentic representation? And again, I don't think authentic representation comes from token bookings. I think it comes from resource allocation. It comes from more scholarships at academies. It comes from more seasoned or more higher skilled performers taking the time to do service, not like I'm just going to give money, but like take the time to give the note, take the time to say, hey, this is how I set up my business, this is how I
Yeah.
approach these things. I think that would be a lot more valuable than giving a one and done booking that appears as though you are helping when in reality there's a fear that you're being replaced, but there's no replacing. We're all at the bottom, how I look at it. Like nobody's replacing
Yeah.
anybody. Like we're all
There's no
struggling.
nurturing. There's no nurturing in that.
There's no
Yeah.
competition. Like there's no room to fight. We're all human.
Yeah.
We're gonna have dynamic emotion. But in regard to like solidarity, I
Mhm.
do think that has to go across identity spectrums. And for me, I'm most focused on the margins. Like that's always been in my work. I'm a margin person. I'm a black. I'm queer. My sister's disabled. I'm sure I'm the spectrum. If I got fucking tested, like I have ADD. Like I that's me. That's my
Yeah.
personal identity. So that's what I'm passionate about. I do think it will take allyship, and I've had a lot of closed door conversations where I've had to get parties in the room that typically would not get in the room. But by the grace of God, this project has brought a lot of players together that don't play with each other, but behind the history. And I think that's why it's evolving, because it's like, guys, you can have your personal beef. Yes, you can. But can we suspend the bullshit big booking on Facebook for the sake of all of our legacy? Please, like, have a closed group. Talk shit on your Patreon. I just think there's too
Right.
many
Right.
people watching us that are constantly like, I don't know for you, but for me, when I was going around trying to find places for my production, the number one pushback owners have is that burlesque people are unprofessional and are drama and they're not worth the money. That's like the number one response I got. I don't want to deal with it.
Understood.
It wasn't
Understood.
that they don't know. They've had it. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to
Well,
pay for it. They
yeah.
don't value it. We have attitude. So how do we combat that as like a whole? I don't know if we
Because
have
we're all Rachel from Glee. Like we all have.
you know what I mean? Like not everybody's
Yeah.
a diva. Actually, like I've had a very good experience so far. So I don't know how it will evolve, but I feel race wars a lot in this space. Because I'm in the Black Burlesque group. I see it's a daily thing. This person's doing this.
Oh,
This
and there are
person
people who hate the fact that there's a Black burlesque group because they find that to
really.
be, oh yeah, because they find that to be a separatist. And how are you supposed to educate because of course that's your responsibility, Aquarius,
Educate who?
to educate the people that you're working with
Oh
to
no.
know what they should and should not be
They could pay
doing.
somebody. They could pay Queerly Fantastic. Queerly does DEI. And so does Shimmy LaRue. They could pay them.
There you go. One of
Yeah.
the there was a really interesting a couple of years ago. There was something that came up, but I don't even remember what it was because frankly it did not involve me. But there was a discussion, and then Egypt Black Nile was it was like, hey, folks, this is black business. We don't need to actually have everybody listen to this right now.
You
Can we
know,
take this somewhere else? And I'm
I
like,
think
that's a
it's okay
valid
for
point.
anyone to have their own spaces. Like, I think it's fine. I think the issue is when that becomes a weapon,
Mm,
And
mm,
I think in regard to, again, like the Black experience in the United States, it's always been taboo for us to convene. It's always been taboo to align. And what I've noticed recently is because some of these players are coming together and working, like my board, my advisory board is there's some hot hitters on there. We've got
mm,
Ashlita, Knox Falls, Egypt. We've got a lot of different personalities on there. We've got Trey, Desiree Demore, Redbone, all people around the country. But the number one thing I've noticed is like we can all align on this. And I
mm,
think that's even like with the Beehoff crew, regardless of the politics, it's always been that through line. Like we're here for something bigger than ourselves. And
mm.
I think if we can remember that in the conversations that get heated, it will be easier to move along.
I think it's gonna get scarier for, I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
not
yeah,
not bad scarier necessarily, but it's gonna require some adjustment because uh, that it's such a sad thing to say, but that Legends group is getting smaller every year.
yeah. It's
And not
getting smaller.
necessarily because people are passing, but the access is a difficulty. This was one of the first years that Judith Stein didn't come because
Right, right. The point.
of stuff going on. And there are other people who like there are people who live next door. Gina Bonbon is not in great health right now, so was not able to be there all weekend. Was there for a couple of hours and had to check it. There are a couple of who didn't walk because they just couldn't maneuver. As we hopefully also then learn about our intersectionality with disability as well.
Hmm.
I hopefully that we will also address that in that if we live long enough, we will all be disabled at some
Hmm.
point.
Mm.
Um,
It's deep.
oh, Jacqueline Box, I think, said that to me, and
Hmm.
that's a real hit to
Hmm.
say, oh shit, is making sure that things are that are available and not necessarily accommodations are being made,
Hmm.
but that things are in place already because they knew you were coming.
Right. I learned
Not
the hard
in
way with my like first production. I was in this like speakeasy type place that had stairs. And I think it
Yeah,
was
those places are
Sally
so cool,
Stardust.
but they're not accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Sally. Sally was like, is this wheelchair accessible? And I was like, ooh. So now, from now on, I will not work at venues that like don't have ramps. And you learn, like you learn these things, but also, yeah, like why would I want to deny that experience for a whole subset of people who want to be there? So I mean, I think things will get scary in the sense that people are going to get a little nastier online, but I also think we're getting closer and closer to all realizing that we do have more power than it feels. I do
Mm,
think obviously we can't change the political process, but I think that there are pockets of sunshine happening, and I'm committed to like elevating those stories
mm.
as a not only hope measure but a practical example of a place to get ideas, because I one thing I'm worried about for myself is like burning out, and I'm talking about burning out from caring. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people do start caring, but I've met a lot of jaded personalities in this field due to trauma, and I understand, but that can't be everybody's experience, otherwise we're not gonna make it.
No, we have to take
You
care of
know?
ourselves. We have to take care of
Right.
ourselves. Well,
And
shit.
fight and it's I get it's a balance. Like you don't always want to be squaring up fighting. You want to be able to live life and relax. But Danny always reminds me, because we talk a lot because we're getting ready to move in, and she's like, you just every day you just got to agitate just a little bit.
Yeah, this is Iowa, right?
Yes, Davenport,
Yeah.
Iowa. Yeah. Mhm. And another, I'm excited to work with her because I really want to talk. I think another missed opportunity. One, The first one was Samson that I like in my lifetime of performing. I think the second one is like tied to like this sex work community for sure. They seem
Oh,
more
you mean
organized.
the
Just in general,
interactions,
just like
that yeah,
why are we not,
the
why are we,
spokespeople.
yeah, like in terms of spokespeople, in terms of inviting them into our spaces to as like we have value we could provide them and vice versa.
Yeah.
Obviously the craze of like the pole studio, like that bubble popped, but there are hundreds of more pole studios than there are burlesque academies. So they're, they've been able to monetize that fitness model in a way that I think we need to be infiltrating the strip clubs and the gyms and places that already have the infrastructure in place. We just need to bring our like magic sauce to them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have all
Aquarius
these
Moon,
Aquarius.
I find you
You
just a
know, no
force.
shade. I really do try to give off a bimbo vibe because I think it's just safer sometimes that they think that I'm an airhead. It's just
It's self-protection. Yeah. You know what?
yeah.
We contain multitudes. Uh,
Hmm.
Thank you for being so generous with your time and talking about these stuff. It is next to producing shows and being in shows and being a part of being backstage, this is one of my very favorite things is to just talk about the stuff. Obviously, so much has to go beyond talking.
Hmm.
If I can facilitate in any way moving beyond that, I'm here for it. But a lot of what I get where I enter the scene, a lot of times where my door leads to a lot of the talking. If I can help bring it up to the next floor, great. If I can bring it up to the next floor after that, I want to be a part of things. I believe strongly in mutual creation, and I want more symposiums. I want more discussion. I want things to be available. I love the idea of talking it out. I really, really do because
Oh my God, we need to
it's
plan a fireside chat.
yeah.
When I was lobbying, I loved the fireside chat. I love like they would send us to lunch and it's just people fucking yapping.
Just a little assembly, Yeah, I like it. I like it. Um,
Thank you for having me, and I
my
think it's
pleasure.
revolutionary work. I know 20 years, I am admiring that, and I do think we very much need your energy and your art. I think it's very important, especially like I just think you need to keep going. So whatever we have to do, we got to crowd fund. Whatever we got to do, we're gonna do.
Well, thank you for that. I'm going to keep that in my pocket.
Yeah.
Can you tell the folks the ways that they can keep in touch with you and, you know, the things you do?
Yes, yeah. Just keep it simple. At It's Aquarius Moon. If you want to follow the exhibits, everybody wants to be a showgirl, and my DMs are open. Give me a little bit time to reply, but yeah, I'll
But it
just
can
keep it simple
happen.
with that. And my website's it's aquariusmoon.com. So
Yes,
come hang out with me.
ITS
Yeah.
Aquarius Moon. Oh, I imagine you are an Aquarius Moon because
I'm an
you can't.
Aquarius Sun, Cancer Moon. Don't tell anyone.
Oh shit,
I just love Aquarius and I love the moon, so then I put it together.
that's fair. I won't tell anyone. You did sort of say it on the podcast, but they
Yeah.
had to get all this way to
They have
find
to
that.
get all the way to here though.
I'm so excited to be able to share space with you in person real soon.
Yes, OBF.
And let's do it. Let's have fun. Let's enjoy ourselves. I don't know if you are an imbiber, but imagine me finding you at the bar and getting you something
Oh, I'll be
because
hanging out.
I appreciate you
I'll be
so
there
very,
all
very
weekend.
much.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you for all the things you do. Thank you for caring as much as you do, and for preserving in the ways that you do. Please, folks at home, if you are in the areas that the traveling exhibit gets to, if you are interested in featuring it, they can contact you, right? And they can
Yep, if
talk
they're
about
interested in
getting some stuff.
teaching it, being in it, volunteering, we're all hands on deck.
Let's do it. Let's do it. This is important stuff. Really, really is. So, my darling, mwah,
Thank
thank you.
you.
And let's chat some time off the record too, because I have some questions
Please.
that I didn't quite feel comfortable talking about in person on the
Okay.
cam. But I want to
I'm here.
know some stuff.
Yeah.
My darlings. Folks at home, thank you for listening. This was a double-sized episode. I really appreciate you sticking it through it. Necessary conversations. You can throw dollar bills at the patreon.com/WeBurlesque or in the footnotes all the ways that you can support me and my adventures. Thank you so much. Mwah.
Hi.
Bye.
Amazing.
WeBurlesque the podcast, created, developed, and edited by Viktor Devonne. Podcast artwork by Logan Laveau. WeBurlesque the podcast cover art photography by Atticus Stevenson. Theme song, On a 45 by This Way to the Egress, used with permission. All incidental music via Pixabay under the expectation of fair use. Please visit WeBurlesquePodcast.com for notes on this and every other episode. Follow WeBurlesque and Viktor Devonne on just about every platform, and support the podcast via patreon.com/WeBurlesque. Don't got the cash? Please follow, subscribe, and give 5 stars on every platform you can get your hands on. It really does help. All original material is owned by Viktor Devonne and White Elephant Burlesque Corporation. All other materials property of their respective copyright. No infringement, while likely, is intended. This episode, and all episodes thereafter, are in memory of Lucky Charming. Miss you, friend. And that's it.
Woohoo!